State.
Accompanying him will be Ancient Ghana Band, who took us back home to our indigenous music. Join Selorm Adonoo this Sunday on the Upside Down Show at 7 p.m. prompt, only on Channel 1 TV.
So you're going to come with me?
Why was I?
Don't worry, when we get there I'll explain. I don't want to do it here. But like I said, I've been following you for a while. I work with the CID. Let's go have a conversation, okay?
And what am I doing here?
Wait, I'll tell you. What's cooking? I've brought the acclaimed, the famed, the infamous Judge Louis Lamise to join me here in the kitchen.
I always want to make people taste or bite on the ginger, the pepper. It has its unique taste and flavor it gives to the meal. So aside the paste, I love to add these ones so
chopped.
people can bite into them when they eat the food.
Well, before I say texture, to give it some texture.
Give it some texture. I'm learning these vocabs. Give me small water.
Oh.
A little more than you pour everything. So now if the thing doesn't cook well, who should
it will be you.
As the judges here, in fact, all rise.
Why are you like this?
What's Cooking is brought to you by Tasty Tom, Kivo Pepper, and Susie Herbal Center.
Where politics meets power, where the tough questions are asked, welcome to Face to Face. Every Tuesday at 9 p.m., join Umaru Amadou as he takes you face to face with the key players shaping the future of our nation.
I lost over $10 million at the trade fair.
You had a fight with the management of trade fair?
I don't have a fight with them. I just deplore the way they went about what they did.
Let's talk about the chief prosecutor of the state at the time that you were being prosecuted, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, the Attorney General.
Yes. I think he was directed to jail us.
By who?
By the system.
Boku has been a failure for your government, though.
Can't be a failure.
You have not solved it.
No, you are not praising them, the previous government for solving it, which was even a more difficult case.
It's quite obvious that from these votes, the people felt that let's just let you go.
So they were disappointed in
us.
You are essentially the worst government in the Fourth Republic.
I don't know how you are doing that. If you based on the indicators.
Yes, based on the number of people who refuse to come and vote for you.
If that is your analysis, then why not?
No filter, no boundaries, just the truth behind the headlines. Deep, bold, and unflinching. Face to Face with Umaru Amadou airs on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. only on Channel 1 TV, where politics gets real.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to The Big Issue. My name is Selorm Adonoo. The Big Issue is live on 97.3 City FM. It's also on our socials and, of course, on Channel 1 television. The show, as always, is live and interactive, and you can join us via our WhatsApp line 020-444-7033. And, of course, that is being displayed on your screens for those of us watching us on television. or 0549-986-996. This week has been an interesting week filled with a lot of legal issues, a lot of investigations, a lot of matters around accountability. We begin with the issue of the removal of the Chief Justice. The Constitution has, laid out how the Chief Justice or other Superior Court justices should be removed if they have to. A petition must first be sent to the President, and then a certain process kicks in from there. Now, a petition or petitions, about 3 of them, we understand, have been sent to the President. The President has forwarded same to the Council of State in what the Constitution calls consultation. Now, a lot of matters have arisen therefrom, whether the Chief Justice was supposed to have been given a copy or copies of the petitions against her, seeking to remove her before the President forwarding same to the Council of State. That matter has generated a lot of discussion. The Chief Justice eventually wrote to the President requesting copies of the petitions against her, seeking to remove her. The President has replied, giving her copies of the petitions and giving her 10 days to submit a response. That response, we understand, will form part of the deliberations in the consultation between the Council of State and the President. Perhaps that will generate or will ground a prima facie determination of the matter. And if so, then we move to the next stage, which is the constitution of a certain committee made up of justices and other people who are not lawyers or who are not members of the Council of State and all of that. They will make a determination as to whether the Chief Justice should be removed or not. When that is done, the report is sent to the President, and the President will just have to follow through with the recommendations of that committee. So it's a major, major thing that is happening. It has never really happened this way before in our legal political history. We wait to see what it is. We do not know the content of the petitions. Indeed, that is what the Constitution says, that all these things should happen in camera. In camera means that not in the full glare of the public. And so the quote-unquote secrecy of the petitions also only helps the process. It's an interesting journey we are beginning, and we hope that by the close of next week, the presidency will have the response from the Chief Justice for the process to continue. We'll examine the various arguments that have arisen. 2 persons have gone to the Supreme Court seeking various declarations and intim of them and see what merits they have. And now that the Chief Justice has been given copies of the petition, what becomes of those actions? We'll look at all of that. In the second part of the show, the Attorney General has been on a roll. This week, or around Monday, he held a press conference where he told the public a number of things he's been doing. Key amongst those is the investigation surrounding the former Director General of the National Signals Bureau, Mr. Edubuahin, and their wife. We understand that they had diverted some huge sums of money into their private company accounts, done a lot of things, acquired a lot of properties, which the state deems to have been improperly acquired. We'll look at all of that. And indeed, other matters, including the gift boss allegedly hiding somewhere in Senegal and all of that. People think that the press conference and the manner it was done by the Attorney General constitutes declaring the man or the men guilty even before they are tried. Is that a case? You hold that view? He's Attorney General, he has to state his case. He stated his case. He believes in his case. He believes that he has enough to convict the person. Others think that he's Minister of Justice, so he has to tread cautiously. What do you think? What are your views? We will look at all of this. It does appear that this Attorney General likes to face the media and deal with matters a certain way. You recall when he entered nolle prosequa and withdrew from some cases, he addressed the press and gave reasons, even though he was not necessarily supposed to do so. He said he believed in transparency. So what we are seeing, is this transparency or is it media trial? We'll look at all of that. So these are the 2 key issues on your table. There have been a lot of matters in the country, but we are looking at these 2 for today. Again, show is live and interactive. Join the discussion, 020-444-7033 or 0549-986-996. My name is Selorm Adonoo. I take a short break. When I return, we will provide some updates, introduce our guests, and we have the discussion underway. Once again, you're welcome. Hello, you are welcome back. This is your platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. We call it a big issue. We are dealing with two issues. The matter with the removal of the Chief Justice, the process as it is, and then the matters that have arisen. She wrote to the President has replied her, giving her the petition she called for, and 10 days to give a reply. Did she have to write before she would be given a copy or copies of the petition? We'll look at all of that. Two actions have been filed at the Supreme Court. Two persons, one MP and one gentleman, both citizens of Ghana, seeking various things. We'll look at all of that. Of course, the matter is with the court, so we'll be cautious about how we deal with them, not to go into the merits, but generally try to understand what the persons want. The AG is also been doing his work, investigating cases, putting cases together. None is gone to court yet, as in the substantive issue. But yesterday, the High Court gave some bail conditions, which were a toned-down version of what the investigative body gave, 80 million cedis to Kwabena Dubois, and we understand he's doing his best to meet those conditions. This is a step down from what the investigative body EOCO did, 120 million. And we will deal with all of that and see. Is this AG trying matters in the media, or he is a student of transparency? We'll look at all of that. So now, the President, John Dramani Mahama, has given Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo 10 days to submit a preliminary response to 3 petitions calling for her removal from office. This follows a formal request by the Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkornoo, to President John Dramani Mahama for copies of the petitions filed against her seeking her removal from office. In a letter to the embattled Chief Justice, President John Mahama expressed disappointment over the circulation of her request for copies of the 3 petitions filed against her. The petitions, which have stirred significant debate within legal and political circles, were submitted by petitioners questioning the Chief Justice's conduct and suitability to continue in her role. While the specific details of the allegations remain undisclosed, the move signals a high-stakes legal and constitutional battle ahead. By invoking this timeline, the Chief Justice must now swiftly present her case or risk further proceedings that could determine her future in office. Legal analysts suggest that the response from the Chief Justice, Gertrude Torkornoo, will be crucial in shaping the next steps, including whether a formal inquiry to the petitions will be initiated. So, yes, these are the matters, or this is the first matter we'll be dealing with. My guest this morning, the Honorable Isaac Boama Nyako, Member of Parliament for the Efia constituency. He actually took out the Honorable Kujo, who was Minister of State also in charge of public sector matters in the Efia constituency in the Western region. So it's a big one. Also have Inusa Fuseni, Member of Parliament, former Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, former Roads and Highways Minister, and he's held other portfolios. Justice Abdullah, private legal practitioner, will join us, and Franklin Kujo, as always, will be on the show. Kwekwan Sasari, private legal practitioner, will also chip in at some point. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Selorm.
Yes. It's a pleasure having you. And how has it been so far in Parliament?
So far, so good. Thank you for having me. Let me say a very good morning to your cherished listeners, and also a good morning to the good people of Efia constituency, on whose benevolence I represent in Parliament, and also to the people of the Western region. You know, over the last elections, the New Patriotic Party had about 9 members of Parliament.
Almost all of them were.
It's been whittled down to 2.
So one of the lucky 2. And the Takrady
and the former regional minister. Yeah, so I wish the good people of our Muslim community as well happy Eid and a good morning to all of them. So Parliament, yes, it's been good so far. Just this morning we are likely to rise for the first session of Parliament.
This morning?
We're going back to Parliament at 12. Yesterday we tried to pass the appropriation and all the other legislations that the minister had brought to us. we had some few challenges with the gold board. As at 2 a.m., we felt as a minority that we could adjourn and come back later this morning. But the speaker, the first deputy speaker, presiding, thought otherwise with the leader of government business, Honorable Mahama Yariga. So the minority were compelled to leave the house, and to my indication, they've been able to pass the gold board as at 3:15 a.m. this morning.
What were the concerns you had? Because what we get in matters like the gold board is been a campaign promise, and it appears to be a high stakes thing happening. I mean, Sami Jemfi and all of those guys there. What is the concern? Is it that, I mean, so we saw that in the health insurance Act, for example, because it was high stakes, the minority then, NDC, walked out and a whole lot. But that has become a mainstay. Given what they are saying about the gold board and how they intend it to work, it will become a mainstay. Won't you regret this decision of walking out? Tomorrow it becomes a big thing, raking in a lot of revenue, dealing with matters of exchange rate fluctuation, etc., as they make us believe we do. Tomorrow, how do you come back to it?
No, we didn't walk out from the consideration of the gold board. We've been extremely cooperative with the majority on this matter. What we've done as a minority is to support the government in its business. If you look at the number of bills that have been presented, I sit on the Finance Committee of Parliament, and most of these amendments have to pass through or were referred to the Finance Committee. And if you look at the speed with which we have to sit and then consider all of these things. And so it was only fair when it came to the gold board that we do scrutiny. We embark on a lot of scrutiny on the gold board, which we did and had a lot of concerns. We were able to table some at the committee level. When the bill was also given to other members, members also had some perspective on it. Some proposed amendments were also made by such members. And then yesterday, when we considered it after the first reading, it had to be taken to the winnowing committee of Parliament, which also did that.
So you are new in the house, but you understand your understanding of the terms and the processes. I mean, we know it and things, but that's impressive. Yeah, so, that's good.
So after all of that, we now have the bill before the House, and even on the floor of the House, it is still important to give members the opportunity to scrutinize it, because at the end of the day, it is not about obstructing the wishes of the government. This is the government who has its own policies. So we are inclined to support the government. But we are also mindful that Parliament is a house of lawmaking. And so any legislation that we pass, we should have considered it thoroughly to make sure that it serves the best interest of the good people of this country. And so when you are forced to rush the consideration of such a critical bill before the House, then it becomes a bit of a challenge. But I think we've done a good job as a House. Most of the concerns that we raised from the minority end, I must confess, were considered at the winnowing stage, especially. Most of the proposed amendments that were submitted by Honorable Kojo Nkrumah, Amin, and the rest were all considered. But the other teething areas that the majority felt they wouldn't budge. And so the bill has been passed this morning by Parliament. We will see what we take it from there.
Very well. So yes, so that's just preliminary. Now let's get to the subject of today. Just Abdullah, you're welcome. And a pleasure to have you as always.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Yeah. So the Chief Justice has been under fire. 3 petitions submitted to the President against her. It's not novel necessarily, but what's been your view generally about the process so far? I mean, is it that her conduct or her stay in office has been so bad that people want her out? 3 petitions, within a short space of time. We know that prior to the election, Professor Azad did one, which the President dismissed a day before leaving office and all of that. What's your general view or thinking about what has happened this week?
Thank you very much. I believe as a country, since we started our 4th republic, the 1992 Constitution has been our guiding constitution. And over time, the Constitution has come under a lot of interpretations, and it's because the Constitution is a living organism, and as we progress, things happen, and citizens are entitled to bring any issue that they think is of concern when it comes to the administration of this country. We are also mindful that we have three arms of government. We have the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. But one of the critical institutions that we've tried to protect its independence is the judiciary, because at the end of the day, the executive has a lot of powers, and all the coercive powers of the state are in the hands of the executive. The legislature, we are a parliament and a representation of the people, and our chamber, the parliament, offers us an opportunity to debate and to bring issues across. But when it comes to the judiciary, that is where we all run to when we have concerns in this country. Issues that borders on the exercise of rights by the executive and that of the legislature all goes to the judiciary. And the spirit of this constitution, both the letter and the spirit of this constitution, is subject to the interpretation of the Supreme Court or of the judiciary. And so it is very important as a state that we are guided when it comes to how we treat officers of the judiciary. It is not out of place that if anybody has a concern against an action or inaction of any member of the judiciary, whether a lower court judge or a high court judge or a superior court judge, the person brings the issues up. And the Constitution is very clear in giving us modalities through which we address these things. I think if anybody has concerns about the performance of the Chief Justice, or he thinks that the Chief Justice has conducted herself in any way that goes contrary to the provisions of the Constitution, the person have every right to petition the President as is laid down in the Constitution. So petitions, according to His Excellency, the President has been received, and he has triggered the constitutional process for it. My preliminary comment is that it is good for the democracy of this country. It is important that we journey through this particular process, but we shouldn't do this with an intention of disrupting the good gains that we've made as a country. When some of these matters happen the way it has begun, then it's easy for people to read meanings into it, whether it is politically motivated because of the way appointments have been done to the Supreme Court. And so they find it as a fine opportunity after a change of government to reset, in their own words, the judiciary. And so I'm sure when we go into the details of
very well, I would like you a bit later to explain to me what you mean by the way it has begun or the way it has been done so far, what that means, because the President perhaps just triggered a process by forwarding the petitions to the appropriate state body, the Council of State, as Constitution says. But I'll leave that for later. Justice Abdullahi, welcome, the celebrated lawyer in the Justice Abdullahi versus AG matter. Good to have you. I mean, interesting scenes. I mean, a lot of legal and political matters, judicial, constitutional issues we have seen this week. The removal of the Chief Justice. Your preliminary thoughts. I mean, why are people so much in a hurry to get it out? 3 petitions in the space of 2-3 months, when there was one earlier by Professor Zah. What's happening? You go to the courts every day. What's happening?
It's quite difficult to say without casting our minds back to the pre-electoral disputes that we had. I'm sure a lot of these things, mind you, I mean, we should note that to remove a Chief Justice or any member of the Superior Court, you must be able to ground your arguments on one of 3 main pillars before this whole process can be triggered. And so one, you must first be able to establish that indeed there is a misbehavior that is capable of removing the CJ or any member of the Superior Court. And the Constitution calls it stated misbehavior. if you're unable to do that, you must be able to show that indeed the CJ or the person you seek to remove is incompetent to occupy the office that he holds. Of course, because you're dealing with the CJ, we limit ourselves to the CJ. And of course, if you're unable to do any of these, now, remember the Constitution uses or, and I'm assuming, of course, on an advice that these all are not supposed to be conjoined, but independent, separate of each other. So once you're able to satisfy any of these grounds, a prima facie case is made out. Of course, the last one is inability to perform his functions. Now, so inability to perform your functions, the Constitution adds to that, because really, if the Constitution did not explain what inability to perform his functions would have been, then incompetence and inability to function would have been almost the same. But the Constitution explains further that inability to function here would be either an infirmity of body
or mind.
In other words, in simple terms, whether the person is sick or not. If you are sick and you're unable
to the extent that you cannot perform your role,
so malaria
and you're unwilling to live on your own. You are unwilling to live on your own. You must trigger a process.
So if you have malaria, you cannot be asked to leave because taking into consideration the circumstances of our jurisdiction, malaria is not a disease in this country. Elsewhere, you could be quarantined for having malaria. Maybe if you have a more dangerous, maybe life-threatening disease, it could be a ground under this circumstance. So what I'm saying here is that any of these petitions, if it does not satisfy one of these grounds, we cannot be having this discussion today. Now, if you're having this discussion today, and if you remember, prior to the elections, these issues involving the 4 members of Parliament, I think it's probably one of the issues that triggered the all these concerns about the judiciary. In fact, it possibly pushed it to the crescendo. But prior to that, we had a lot of discussions, a lot of concerns that people were expressing about how the judiciary had been one-sided over a long period of time. I mean, at least within the 8-year period. Now, as to whether those concerns were genuine, were germane, or were simply political in nature is a different question that we may not be able to interrogate here. But fact is that they did happen. People were concerned about the continuous 7-0 decisions of the court, and people felt that indeed perhaps the CJ could have held by allowing every member of the panels that sat on constitutional matters to air their own individual views, but not to retire to their offices and come back with a 7-0 with nobody knowing exactly the thoughts that went into these decisions. And consistently, these decisions were going one way. Unless you were not following the discussions or the mood at the time, you may probably pretend that these didn't happen. These happened, these were concerns, legitimate or otherwise, doesn't really matter, because judicial decisions may not necessarily be influenced by...
But the point I was coming to make, that if indeed, genuinely they think it should be 7-0...
It should be 7-0, you cannot change it.
Should they put 1 or 2 dissenting people...
Simply just to satisfy public opinion. No, I clearly not that. However, once these become one of too many, it was feeding into the perception of judicial collision with the executive at the time, and naturally this became so much of an issue for those who were observing the judicial landscape. So if you take this from that angle, one can easily say that the happenings of today has its roots from that period. Then came in the four. How the 4 members of Parliament issue were handled. In fact, even lawyers belonging to the other side, belonging to the MPP side, were overly concerned about the way issues were handled by the judiciary at the time. And if you note, in fact, it looks a lot of the things that happened beat established judicial precedent. First, where you had an application that went ex parte to the Supreme Court for an injunction of a sort. for a stay of execution.
Stay of execution.
That is a complete misnomer. It would never happen. In fact, if I did that same application, and I remember I mentioned it at the time,
to be thrown out.
You not just be thrown out. The way the Supreme Court will castigate you will make you feel like a kid. You probably would never even step there for the rest of your life. They will deal with you. But this happened. And the weird part was how, for instance, the same ex parte application that we're dealing with succeeded in
a matter of hours
in getting called, in fact, members getting empaneled, and the application being heard, all of which was such a miracle that would never happen in a regular circumstance. Complete miracle. I mean, possibly the 15th miracle of Jesus Christ. This would never happen.
But given the importance of that matter, did they have to wait if it was important for them to deal with it on that day?
See, I can understand.
Because the Chief Justice was of the view that
no matter
constitutional crisis.
There's no matter that will go to the Supreme Court without being important. Every matter that goes to the Supreme Court is overly important. And that is why they have established their own rules in dealing with issues. So if the moment you start treating some issues exceptionally, particularly when there's no rule governing that, and it becomes so unique on its own, it creates a problem. And the kind of problem it creates is, once again, looking at the circumstances that we found ourselves at the time, where you had people who had already formed an opinion of the judiciary, and you create this room, it unfortunately reinforces that wrong perception, if you like. That's assuming it's a wrong perception. It reinforces it. And you would not want to feed into that. You would not want to make people believe that indeed what they are saying is what is actually happening. And so in handling such matters, you have to be really professional, if you like. You really have to be such that you will not reinforce such opinions. And for me, the handling of that issue clearly, and the utterances at the time, so it looked like systematically everything that happened within that space yielded to the same perception and views that the general public had. And so I wasn't surprised. Imagine that moment after those decisions, Professor Azar filed the first petition for the removal of the CJ. I can understand that Professor Azar also maybe went beyond himself by publishing that in the media because he knows better, really. But
did he say he published it? Maybe it got leaked.
How did it get leaked?
No, it could be leaked by whoever, we don't know.
That is true. I think we have to be fair to the system because anybody can leak it, whether from within or from without. I mean, because somebody received it and that person is human. That person could have leaked it. Yet the blame was laid on him, and without hearing his version of the story. But you make a valid point there. I think I've been unfair to him on that. But yes, indeed, it got leaked, which ought not to have happened. And that was one of the main pillars that was relied on by the president at the time to shoot it down.
I see.
Meanwhile, my position on some of these matters are that the president owes all of us a responsibility to inform us as a nation the happenings within government. But that could have been done without necessarily having to leak the entire petition. But we need to be informed. It is indeed a cardinal principle of transparency, good governance, and indeed accountability that we be informed of what our government is doing. Because you voted for the president to be in office. And what's the point in being blindfolded about events happening?
So the part about the Felix Ofosu-Kwakye's communication to the public is key. It's been key in all of this, and the rates that have been filed at the Supreme Court.
As a matter of fact, I commend that particular.
But we'll deal with that in a bit. Franklin Kujo is on. The Honorable Yunus Afuseni is here. Welcome, Franklin. Good morning. As a non-lawyer and as a civil society person watching the happenings this week, particularly the Chief Justice's the processes set in place to remove the Chief Justice. What's your thinking around all of that? There's issues of transparency, the communication, whether she should have received copies of the petition and all of that. Just generally, what have been your thoughts this week? Political or legal? I mean, what's been your thoughts?
Well, good morning to your good self and everyone listening, my good friends in the studio as well. First of all, I think this matter is it's a serious matter. The whole idea of trying to remove a CJ, the fact that there are petitions to remove her, are quite serious matters, and I think we should not downplay the importance of all. I've always asked the question: what would warrant or what would lead to people petitioning some of these otherwise independent bodies to be how do I call it, to be taken off their roles or their jobs? First of all, I in this matter, I do believe, and I'm on the side of those who say, well, look, we've got to hear the reasons. We should know exactly what is happening. I'm not too sure this whole idea of in camera sitting, and I think it's really it sounds as though that makes it even more inquisitorial, right? And I don't think it is so right. I think everything ought to be done in the open. So let us see and hear exactly what the arguments are. I do not believe that we do not have to see the petition. I think everything ought to be out there in the open. You see, because these persons make decisions in the open. You understand? Whatever decision, whatever arguments, whatever infractions they've committed, you are basically going after them because, or the petitioners are going after them these persons because they've done A, B, C, D wrong. You cannot hide those. I don't see why you should hide those accusations, especially when this is constitutionally mandated, should I say, but right? So I do not understand all the arguments around, oh, send it to me, and there's some sort of confidence. I don't get it. We should discuss it. In any case, she will either be removed or not removed. There's likely to be just one outcome. And so then what? We get to know at the end of the process. No, we should be part of the process. Maybe, which also leads me to the way we even appoint these persons, right? I think maybe that's a different conversation. But if we had properly appointed these persons and not had the president basically having the biggest say, maybe all of this would not happen. If we have a strong judicial council that actually puts forward these names, and then these persons are vetted publicly, right? So that we know exactly whether they are for it. We wouldn't be here today. I mean, look, if you ask me, there are some of the, I do not want to make a personal judgment, but there are some things I've heard here, some of these persons speak on, and I wonder whether this is the way Supreme Court judges are supposed to behave. I mean, I recall that we had a case some time ago when we were joining, was it the NDC at the time, to Father Nameku's, I was shocked at the behavior of the Chief Justice at the time, not the current one. Obviously behaving like as if we were at the drinking spot. Hey, you are not neutral. You are not. I was like, what was this? And somebody told me, hey, I'm going to go high court. Judge, you sorry, I'm a chew. And I was like, anyway, so this is so funny. I think look, we need to know exactly what happens, because as I said, for me the operating guideline here is that whatever they are accused of, they must have done them in the public domain. I don't think they did them under the cover of darkness. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it even reeks of, I don't even understand. It doesn't make sense to be hearing that, somebody needs to know, somebody doesn't know, and the whole thing be conducted in camera for what? If the person has committed crimes that you are seriously interested in taking him her off, you need to be sure that everybody must know the process. So I'm sorry, I don't yield to this whole thing of doing it hassle. Maybe that's why people are saying that the leaks are actually very important, because we need to know exactly. If you're accusing me, I should know who the petitioners are. And I should know what the petition is saying. I should know. And I want to hear it loud and clear. All the whatever conduct of this person that has been questioned, I've occurred publicly. When some of us have called for the what's the name, the electoral commissioner. By the way, are these people still in office? I wonder. That's a
No,
surprise.
they are done with the biggest part of their job. So I'm sure they are preparing for the next.
We should hold their own elections. We should hold their own
elections.
We should hold their own elections and then vote them out. You know, fact of the matter is that when some of us have accused the Electoral Commission, you saw the things they did. Brave, wrong. Selorm, you know, we've been saying it over and over. We publicly publish it and all of that. If at the end of the day the person is removed, assuming we went ahead and said they should be removed, it will be obvious to everybody that look, Imani took a stronghold from procurement breaches to the high-handedness in the way the elections were conducted, not this one but the previous one, and a whole lot. So I think for me the guiding principle here, and I agree with my good brother Justice Abdullahi, that look, I think clearly this matter should be played out. There should not be any hanky-panky deal. So that somebody will say, hey, this was part of the petition. This was part of it. What are you doing in camera for? It should be out of camera.
I see that's the dictate of the Constitution. So perhaps we may have to look at the Constitution. But I think there's good reason for that, because the Constitution or the framers perhaps of the view that there could be frivolous petitions, and it's not everything that the public must know about. You know, there's a way those things poison the minds of the people. So the body, the Council of State, together with the President, will see whether a prima facie case has been made. And when Justice Abdullahi was talking, he referenced 1461, which dealt with the reasons for the removal, stated misbehavior, whether the petition is been able to make out any claim of stated misbehavior, incompetence, or inability to perform the functions, sickness, etc. So if that body decides or looks at it and none of these grounds have been fulfilled, there'll be no point in continuing the process, because that petition may be incompetent. So I think it's to safeguard the independence of the judiciary as well. You disagree?
Well, maybe, but let me also flip it and say that, look, if we do not get to see or hear what exactly constituted the prima facie cases or case for getting into this whole enterprise and taking the person out, isn't it the same? I mean, if you turn it on its head, it appears as if this is like some sort of court martial that is being held in communicado. I don't even understand it. The persons have been accused of ABC, unless they've been accused of witchcraft, unless they've been accused of how do you call it, paniering, unless they've been accused of things that are akin to civilization, that you think this body of experts, witchcraft catchers would then say, okay, well, because we don't want anybody to hear that this person was a witch. No. These are not serious. These matters may be useful. We should know exactly what had happened. Then we cannot make our own judgment. In any case, there are cases that go to these judges that everybody's privacy is also important. I mean, there are cases that go before them that bother on very serious issues. I don't think most of them are held in camera. I don't think so. So what could be worse, really, that to say that maybe the Chief Justice smiled sheepishly or she didn't smile sheepishly, and because of that we want to remove her? We should hear all those things and then laugh about them sometimes.
I see. Great. So Franklin could do that for you. All right, Franklin, I mean, your concerns will be well noted. I'm sure HK Preve and co are listening. They are working on the Constitution review, so perhaps they are listening. Honorable Yusuf Hussaini, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
This whole process of the CJ removal, highly political. People think that you have a grand plan, resetting every corner of the country, every aspect of the country, finance, economy, judiciary, you are resetting. So if you want to reset, you start from the top. You clear the woman and you bring somebody who is amenable or who is okay with your way of doing things. You know, from there you move to the next, systematically clearing and resetting. You know, what is the inside, I won't say the inside thinking, but do you hear views that this process has been very political and the caution that we should manage it well, else it will destroy the judiciary?
Yeah, thank you. That's a very good question. But before I launch into answering your question, I think that I need to acknowledge my colleague, Member of Parliament for Ifia. Ifia Nkwanta?
Yeah, Ifia Kusimiti.
It used to be Ifia Kusimiti.
and
Kujo. What's the first? What's his first?
Joseph
Kujo. He took him out.
Yeah. And my good brother,
Justice Abdullah.
Yes. We've not seen each other for a very long time.
It's true.
First of all, as Justice Abdullah said, no matter.
But you didn't greet Franklin. Just
Franklin, this is. Oh, sorry, you said it that in the pop.
Yeah, forgive me.
Thank you.
It's not in camera. This is not in camera.
This is not in camera. Yeah, first of all, no matter the principles animating or informing the research agenda of government, of the NDC, that research agenda, if it touches and concerns the judiciary, must be reconciled with Article 1461 if it has to do with justices of the Superior Court of Judicature. So the fact that we are resetting the country does not mean that we can act with impunity. That's the first thing. The second one is, it is not the president who generated the petitions. Neither is it the NDC party that generated the petitions. The petitions were generated by individual citizens of this country who have reasons to believe that the Chief Justice have infringed Article 1461 and so must be removed. Thirdly, because of the nature of our political system, which is founded on the cardinal principle of separation of powers, it is totally, repugnant to the consideration and views of right-thinking members of society that the executive be seen to be interfering in the affairs of the judiciary. So that's a very cardinal principle, and that is further enhanced or solidified by the Constitution granting independence to the judiciary. So to reset the agenda, you must surmount all these hurdles. First, you must not be seen as a government which has come into office by reason of an election to be interfering into the affairs of one arm of the government that has been insulated against interference. And it's part of good governance principles to respect the limits of your authority when it comes to other institutions. So I do not see how the political arguments, and I've listened to many people, it's true, I've heard many people argue that it appears to them, and some have quoted and said things about what happened in the past that seem to suggest that the actions presently going on is, in the judiciary, in respect of the petitions to remove the Chief Justice, are, quote unquote, premeditated actions. I've heard people argue that way. But no matter the sentiments that a person has, and no matter the determination of government to reset this country on the path to prosperity and equality of opportunities, that's the aspirations that we the people, in excess of our inalienable rights, have adopted for ourselves. We aspire that every citizen of this country will have the blessings of liberty, that equality of opportunities and prosperity. Okay, and so that is what I can say about what people presently are talking about.
Great. So now let's get into it. The issue about denying her the opportunity to know who her accusers are or the petitioners are. She had no access to the petition. She had to write to request copies of the petition, etc. Is that right? We thought that once the petitions came and it was going to be forwarded to the Council of State, it's just right that she's given copies of the petition to see who is petitioning against her, who wants her removed, and on what grounds? Shouldn't that have been the starting point? Of course, the law may not have explicitly stated that give it to her before you forward it to the Council of State. That has been the major discussion point around this.
There is no law. That says there's no law. That says that in the determination of a prima facie case, the respondent or the accused person has a right to be heard. There's no law like that.
When it comes to criminal matters, and interestingly, there are lawyers around the table. Yeah. So frankly, I don't even want out now, but your views are important because your views mirror the ordinary man in this matter. In criminal trials, of course, I note that the Republic makes its case. Based on that, the court decides whether there's a prima facie case before the accused is made to open the defense. If the court feels that a prima facie case hasn't been made, the matter doesn't continue. That's why we have the submission of no case, etc. But that's in the criminal trial. In a matter like this, where the laws of natural justice are supposed to be at play, and we are evolving a practice, we are evolving, our constitutional democracy, would it be out of place, or would it have been out of place to provide her with copies of the petition? When she said that she has had the opportunity of dealing with some of these, and at every point, she had forwarded the petition to the respondents or the persons involved for their comments, and their comments influenced her determination of the prima facie. We saw that in the OSP matter. OSP had the cause to send a response because he knew what the people wanted or the people had against him. And so the determination was done. Yes, there's no law, but shouldn't it have been proper to give her the petitions to look at before forwarding?
So the practice of the Chief Justice in dealing with petitions for the removal of justices of the Superior Court of Judicature, which by Article 1463, she determines whether or not a prima facie case has been made, has built a convention. It's a convention.
Yes.
It's the way she chose to go about determining how a prima facie case, how she determines whether a prima facie case has been made. That convention has not been escalated
to law,
to the rule of procedure.
Rule of procedure.
No, it has not. And so you cannot escalate, you cannot say that because she did that, it is now, that practice now becomes a rule of procedure. No, it is not. And I was surprised that she really quoted and referenced Frank Ajay-Chum. Frank Ajay-Chum never decided that. No. Frank Ajay-Chum never decided. And there was no issue as to the procedure to be adopted in determining Frank
Ajay-Chum, it has come up a lot this week. Frank Ajay-Chum dealt with the determination of prima facie.
Yes. It dealt with four in the memorandum of issues. Yes. It dealt with 5 issues. None of it was the procedure. That's why Ajay-Chum, that the bar said that the Council of State must develop a convention,
including getting an senior independent lawyer,
to determine whether a prima facie case has been made. And interestingly, when you look at paragraph 18 of the petitioner's petition, paragraph 18 of the petition.
Which petition?
Frank Ajay-Chum's petition.
Okay.
Paragraph 18. Look at how and it was argued, this case was argued by Kofi Ashanti.
Yeah, with Asante
Bidetu and Asari Ochildaku.
Okay.
I
didn't see his name.
I saw the Bidetu. He was there.
Okay.
Now, look at how they argued the case. On paragraph 18. Allegations of fact relating to Chief Justice's administrative, and this was the decision of whether or not the Chief Justice, the duty or the administrative powers of the Chief Justice can be a subject matter of investigation for the purposes of removing her from office. Allegations of fact relating to Chief Justice's administrative functions are simply not enough to justify the establishment of a committee of inquiry. Plaintiff contention is that there must be factual allegations relating to the basis for the removal in Article 1461, which on the face, ex facie, on the face, establish a case against the Chief Justice for him to answer through the committee process. So clearly, and look at how he concludes it. He says, and then Databa agrees entirely with this argument. So that prima facie must be established on the face
on the petition,
not by reference to the Chief Justice or by any other person. On the face. Look at what Databa said. Such allegations must, however, surmount the prima facie case hurdle before the president may lawfully establish a committee.
So the prima facie necessarily has to come before the committee. So I think, is it a case that people think that by referring the matter to the Council of State, it automatically will, the Council of State will automatically set up the committee? Well, just rest for now. Let me. Okay, no, you answer this because I need to go to the. So the Chief Justice, the committee, the Council of State will automatically form the committee, because at some point the arguments got confusing. The Council of State was in our present situation. Okay. The Council of State doesn't have what it takes to just set up the committee. The setting of the committee will be subsequent to establishing a prima facie case, and that should even be done in consultation with the president.
Yeah.
So I didn't really get a whole thing about the prima facie being served, etc. But did you get that confusion as well? That people thought that by referring the matter to the Council of State will go ahead and then establish the committee, and that could lead to the suspension of the Chief Justice.
Yes, I got the argument, and that argument is not new. That was what sent Frank Ajechum to court. Brad Akwete, who had petitioned the president to remove the Chief Justice, had argued that on a literal interpretation of Article 1466, when a petition is sent to the president must establish a committee to investigate it. So Brad Akwete had discounted the requirement of prima facie.
Yeah.
Okay? Because on literal reading of Article 146, there is no prima facie.
Which Databa said was an inadvertent omission.
Clearly. Because even by parity logic, by logic, the Chief Justice is a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature.
So if in removing the Superior Court judge, there should be a prima facie case made, surely the Chief Justice, who is even senior, must have that benefit of that.
She's also a Supreme Court judge. So why will you? So you can't treat two people equally circumstanced differently. You can't. So that's why the bar and the court unanimously agreed that you must read into Article 146.
And in fact, so we are providing education here. So I think what Databa did in that matter, he went to the Committee of Experts report.
And
the Committee of Experts, the draft report they gave to the Consultative Assembly
included prima facie.
So he thought it was
it
was an omission. Great. So interesting. Honorable. So they talk about giving the petition to the lady or the Chief Justice before the matter is forwarded, and her own averment that's how she has handled it. It's just a practice it's a convention. So she cannot force that on anybody. So what's the point about treating her, improperly, breaching her rights, etc.?
Thank you. I think I have to commend my senior colleague for the way he's handled this.
He normally doesn't bring a laptop. So when I saw a laptop today,
he has done a lot of reading. Exactly, and it's important. Before I go into your question, it's important as a country that we take away partisanship when it comes to consolidating our constitutional gains. And so where we all rise above our political interest and we seek to look at the provisions of our laws to ensure that we protect the sanctity of our constitution. I think I'm very, very much happy with my senior. And he's been like that. You know, he's been like that. Primarily, we're looking at an interest of certain parties to remove the Chief Justice from office. And the procedure has been set out constitutionally in Article 146. Now, we've all understood from the Ajay case that the constitutional provision had some lacuna, which, of course, when the drafters of the constitution finally, like we continue to do even today in Parliament, we've just passed a lot of legislations. You had certain comments, it's taken on board, others may not be taken on board. Now, over time, issues will come that will test the provisions of those laws. And then you have people now sitting back to review it and to determine whether, as it was stated, it satisfies the entire interest of what the framers of the Constitution determined. And I think it's important we place on record that with all these discussions, we all agree that it is only fair that when someone is accused or is being accused or his entitlement to occupy an office is being challenged, the person has to be given the right of hearing before a determination is made in that matter or in that circumstance. The determination in this case will be the prima facie. The prima facie. Because, but how about on the face determination, on the face of the record determination? So, of course, the petition goes to the president. The president would have read the matter. The president would be inclined to forward it according to the constitutional provision to the Council of State. Now, in that referral to the Council of State, it is important for the president, after assessing the petition, to come to a conclusion whether he thinks there is merit, because already the Constitution has given a provision as to on what basis someone can be removed from office. So on the face of the petition, as learned counsel said, it is easy for even the president to make those determinations. But it is also important in informing the president to make that determination, to give the accused person, the person who is being accused, an opportunity to speak onto the matter, because there may be a lot of allegations in that matter which the president cannot answer. So in coming to that conclusion, or in coming to a position where he thinks on the face of the petition that has come, it is necessary for it to be forwarded for consideration, it is only fair that the president gives the person the opportunity. So though we all agree that in the Constitution it is not a right, but from our legal practice and from judicial precedent, we come to the conclusion that it is, because after all, at the end of the day, what do we intend to achieve? We want to be fair. And whether you give the person the right now, the person would, even when it is referred to any committee, at the end of the day, the person will be given a hearing. So why do you allow this process to be triggered to that extent, when if you had given the opportunity today, you could cure some of the mischief that the follow-up of referring it to the Council of State to set up a committee is determined. So, one, the president took issue of the Chief Justice not leaking his request to the press, and I think he didn't say it directly. He said it was disappointing. Yes, it's unfortunate, and I want to be fair to the Chief Justice that, like you said in the matter of anybody could have done it. But yeah, so whilst you are there, talk to me. Why was it necessary to copy the President of the Association of Magistrates and Judges, the President Bar Association, President Supreme? But who is the President of the Supreme Court? Is she not the one? Yes. I thought so on record, maybe she just wanted to be on the file. Okay. So why was it necessary to inform them that she needed copies of that? So write to the president. Let it end there. Why did you have to copy the President Bar Association, Association of Magistrates, and Supreme Court President? What do you think was the thinking? I'm sure she, as the head of the judiciary, I believe she wanted to bring this issue up to the attention of the various stakeholders within, because it's already been out there by the communication director or the spokesperson of the president that this issue is before the president. And so it's now in the public domain that the Chief Justice is petitions have been sent to the president, and the president is taking steps through the Council of State to get the issue looked at. And so as the head of the judiciary, if she is also making a request to the president, she believes, I think, she believes that she needed to put these bodies on notice that it has come to my attention through the spokesperson to the president that I'm being investigated, or some people have brought a petition against me. And I have not cited those petitions. Nobody has communicated to me directly, because before even the spokesperson to the president would have placed that issue in the public domain, it was also necessary that at least she be communicated to. Even if the president will not make available the petitions, it was only reasonable that if you are coming to put that issue in the public domain, you give an indication that, oh, the president has received formally, that the president has received these petitions, some petitions against you, and in line with the constitution, he is doing ABC. So by the time the communication comes, the CG is already, because in the public space, there are so many heat that goes out there. And for me, that is my thinking of putting the issues there. But why now? Why did the president finally give her the petitions to comment? Is it
maybe because his mind was brought to it, because maybe he thought there was no law, so he doesn't hurt to give it out or not, and so he went with either of the two, because either of the two will be correct. So now that she wants it, have it.
So the advisors to the president, the legal advisors to the president, should have also considered some of these unnecessary drama we bring into our politics, because I'm sure before the president took that decision to consult the Council of State, these discussions would have happened behind closed doors. Should we give her the petition? Should we just go to the Council of State? What becomes of it if we give her the opportunity to review the petitions and all? And certain conclusions were arrived at. So if the president believes it is right for not to give the Chief Justice those petitions, and he took that part, he should have carried that part to the latter, so that the suit from Vincent Asifua to the Supreme Court to also make certain determinations, because we need to grow our system. We need to develop our constitutional democracy. So if you think it is not a constitutional provision for you to give the person...
We need to have a pronouncement to fill that lacuna.
Definitely, and that is why I think the issue before the Supreme Court is not moot at all. The interlocutory application is fine, but in terms of the substance of whether the Chief Justice or any other person in that matter, because we need to have this determination for future occurrences, so that if it is incumbent on the president, after receiving any petition, to give whoever the petition is against, the Chief Justice, a right to give some commentary to it before the Council of State. Then we all know it, and then
do you think that it's a politically charged process? Yes, it's politics, but do you think that the NDC wants to get the lady out at all cost, and so everything is being done to get her out? Some of the people in your in your side or on your side think so, but you have that thinking that it's political, they need to get her out at all cost before they can do things.
I want to follow the tangent of my senior colleague by not following or playing into that narrative, but it is a very strong narrative out there. Before the NDC won power, certain elements of the party have made it clear, based on those decisions at the Supreme Court, that the Chief Justice was not playing game with them, that the Chief Justice could not be trusted. And so when they win power, they will go after her. Not only the Chief Justice, similar pronouncement has been made against the Electoral Commissioner. And so this, for some political people, they think that it is one of the processes to remove a lot of constitutional bodies, the leadership of constitutional bodies, to who they believe are not aligned to the general ideology or interest of the NDC, to go after them. And this is the first person to go after, and then subsequently other
systematic
exactly reset, and they will go there. But to end this, I believe as a political party in power, the president, the path we choose in determining these matters are important for us as a people to trust His Excellency the President, that he is doing all of this in good faith. It is very important for the President to assure this country that all these processes at the end of the day wouldn't feed into that narrative, that it is a political attempt led by the party and the government to go after.
So far, do you have an indication of that assurance?
I'm fine with the step he's taking by giving the Chief Justice the opportunity to review the petition. And for me, it is in good faith from the President, because she made a formal request. If the President had written back to her denying her of that, then that would have given us another conversation. But once she made a request, she even wanted 7 days. The President said, I'll give you 10 days.
Let me press you further on this. We've seen this before. In 2017, not Chief Justice, but EC boss was also petitioned against. She made a request for a copy of the petition from the presidency. Eugene Ahin, then Director of Communication, described it as curious, and eventually said if she wanted a copy, the place to go is not the presidency, it is to the Council of State, because the petition no more resides at the presidency. It's gone to the Council of State. This is the precedent we have.
That's correct.
You know, looking at this, comparing this with, or juxtaposing this against what we have seen, would you say that the persons, some of whom are in your party, calling the president all names because he did not follow the process they think should be, are being hypocritical? Because we've seen this in the past. Now, the Director of Communication says, don't come here, it's curious. Go to where it is, because the petition is moved on. President has pushed it to Council of State. He could have said so too, but he has given it to her. How do you juxtapose the two?
Yeah, I think what had happened in the past wouldn't amount to my belief or my principle of fair hearing to individuals. And so if that communication came from Eugene Ahin, I don't think it is fair and right. And coming how many years down the line, it is important we didn't repeat it, because we are a people who love to always reference the past and use it to justify the way we do our things. So this is an improvement. What we see today is an improvement of what had happened in the past. And so anybody from my political angle should commend this new path, and this is what we need to see. So whether the person can access it from another source, the person is asking the person who had received the official document that get me a copy. So I believe that narrative then wouldn't have been the best when it comes to protecting our people.
Justice Abdullah has been quiet for a while. So
I love listening to the two members of Parliament.
I see. Great.
To be honest, they've been gentlemen.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Great. So, I mean, you started by dealing with 1461, stated misbehavior, incompetence, on the ground of inability to perform the functions, blah, 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 arising from infirmity of mind or body. Is there really any ground or anything that we can found or we can base an action like this on outside of, because this is all encompassing. It's like the ground of unreasonable behavior in matters of divorce. I mean, you can always almost find something and put it under reasonable behavior. So if it's a stated misbehavior, maybe the lady is smiling, she's smiling all over the place, and you can say the fact of her smiling is not CJ-like, that's misbehavior. So you can always find something and put it under any of these grounds. So, I mean, can we actually have a situation where a ground will arise outside of these three?
So, naturally, there will be that position on one day where the person called upon to exercise this decision would have to make a determination of this. So it is obvious at this point to state that the president exercises judicial power when the petition is brought before him. And this judicial power that the president exercises in determining any of these grounds is unfortunately so
the president exercises it, he forwards it, and together with the
actually no, he has to exercise it before he even forwards it. The president has to, on the face of it, as we have all read from the Judicial's case, that the president has to determine first of all whether or not there's a prima facie case, and that is a judicial exercise.
But what then will the consultation process produce then?
It is only when he determines that he informs the Council of State. And then that is where they start with the consultations as to what to do and how to start.
Because I thought the law was that
yes,
he will determine the consultation together with the Council of State.
No. The president has a singular mandate.
No, because the thought is the president doesn't have what it takes to make that determination.
Actually, let's read the text of the law.
Okay. You know, because he has to do that consultation. It's a consultation process that will spawn the formation of the committee if a prima facie case is made.
So after all the things, the president receives the petition for the removal of the CJ and blah, 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 blah. He shall refer the petition.
Let me look for that too.
He shall refer the petition to the CJ. That is where it's the removal of any injustices of the Superior Court. Now, when it comes to 6, it says that if it is the removal of the Chief Justice, the President shall, in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee consisting of 2 justices of the court, one of whom shall be. So here, the only time the President consults the Council of State is for the appointment to be made.
Yes, but we agree that there's a lacuna in there.
Yes, which is why I say that lacuna for the determination of the prima facie case is exercised by the President. That's what I said. It is not in consultation. He exercises as alone. Now, if you want to appreciate this better, you can juxtapose that with the removal of a justice of the Superior Court.
Yes.
The CJ exercises that decision alone.
Yes, so in this case,
he doesn't exercise it with the committee.
Yes, but so that if we are to reorder it, the CJ may form the place of the Council of State. I mean, if we are to reorder it.
Yes.
So the President receives the petition for the removal of the Superior Court Justice. He doesn't determine it. He gives it to another body to do that. Only that in this case now, he has to do so in consultation with the Council of State. In the case of the other Superior Court Justices, it's not in consultation with the CJ. The CJ makes that determination.
Okay, so now let me help again. Now, if you want to rely on precedent to reaffirm my position, that is the President that exercises the decision, let's go back to the Professor Azai's petition. When President Nanado was exercising the decision to dismiss or otherwise, he didn't do that in consultation with the Council of State. He exercised that decision, that discretionary power alone. And he stated that, as far as he's concerned, 2 things happened. First, there was no prima facie case raised by the petitioner. Second, the petition had been leaked to the public domain. And on the basis of these 2 grounds, he didn't think that there was a sufficient ground for the next process to be triggered. Now, that is a precedent that has been set. And that precedent was set less than 4 months ago. Now, my point here is that if you relate this to the Judicial case, which doesn't tell us exactly at what point in time the prima facie case is exercised or who exercises it. But my point of view is that it must be the President, and it is the President on the basis of these 2 positions, these 2 precedents. And I say that because if the President doesn't exercise them, the President is only supposed to be a conveyor belt. That it defeats even the entire purpose in Article in the Clause 6. It defeats that whole purpose, because to say that the president, in fact, it actually moves on to say that the president shall, acting in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee. Now, if the president, in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee, are you then saying that there's a Council of State that is going to appoint a committee? I do not think so. It is the president that is appointed.
It's the president,
that
yes,
is appointed.
but in consultation.
So, exactly, he only consults them. So it is the president, that's why I say that. He decides all these factors. So it's the president that forms the committee. It's not the Council of State. It's the president that determines whether there's a case to be made, and not anyone else. This is my position.
That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Now, this position, for me, even makes matters a bit more difficult for all of us, because there's a lot of discretionary powers is left with the president. And with these discretionary powers, which is unregulated, it makes it so dangerous anytime anyone wants to remove the president. So an unwilling president can always throw out any petition that is brought against him, even if there is a genuine case for the removal of a CJ. Similarly, a willing president intending to remove the CJ, let's remember that the petition, the law does not indicate who the petition should come from. So the petition could as well come from even the vice president.
As a citizen of Ghana.
Because he's a citizen of Ghana. It could come from the chief of staff. It could come from literally anyone. The president's son. Or even the first lady. Now, if any of these, if the president is indeed desirous of removing a CJ, any of these persons, closer or not to the president, can send in a petition, as was alleged some time back. The petition can be cooked right from the office of the president. And on a basis of which a CJ can be removed. Because remember, the president determines who is appointed into this committee. And the three people who are appointed in the committee that is appointed, only two of them have to come from the Superior Court. The three others come from outside of the Republic. I mean, outside of
the legal sphere.
Of the legal space of the Council of State and outside of the judiciary. Now, what it also means is that anyone at all can form part of this committee. What it means is that the moment a president actually wants you out.
Because those three, even if the two Supreme Court judges don't want it, those three have the numbers.
The numbers will override the Superior Court judges. Even though, once again, even the committee's work is also not regulated. And at this point, we can't also tell how they would also determine their case. But if they go by the numbers, there's justices that are coming. If we assume that they are coming from people who have some level of connection with the president. And my thinking is that unless you have a president who is very open-minded, if you have a mischievous president, he would make sure he gets people who are in line with his political ideologies. And if he gets three other people who belong to his political party, we are doomed.
Wow.
We are completely doomed. In fact, it is in view of these dangers inherent in the entire constitutional architecture, in the removal of the CJ, that I would strongly recommend that rather than leaving these matters to discretionary powers and the whims of other people, we have a regulation. We need to have a regulation to make matters very simple, straightforward, reliable. The structure must be legally, statutorily determined to remove the discretionary and then the lacunas that are currently inherently existing. It is the best way we can move forward on these matters. But unfortunately, we have to deal with what we have now.
I see. Let me take a few messages. I'll go to Franklin and come to Inusa quickly. We'll take a break. And then we will hear from one of the Okay, so I'll come to Inusa. But let me take this. Prince Henry Kufruja says, good morning, Selorm. The question we should be asking is whether the president has erred in forwarding the petition to the Council of State. If no, then let's allow the Council of State and the laws of the state to work. No one is above the laws and constitution of Ghana, not even the president of Ghana. I still can't believe the birth certificate cannot be used as a proof of citizenship. Prince Henry, there for you. Senior lawyer Chris Akumi sends a message. He says, good morning. The issue raised is to whether the CJ must access the petition against her before referral to the Council of State. This position has no constitutional grounding. The president was right. However, in caps, however, in the name of natural justice, the courts must always consider applications enhancing personal or human rights. The CJ has applied for a right which is not enshrined in law, but which could be granted in the name of justice only. So that's senior lawyer Chris Akume.
I think that's the position Honorable
yes,
made.
yes,
And then
I
position,
think that position
we
generally, accepted by everybody.
If she had not made the application,
yes, then
and the president wouldn't have been
yes,
obliged
yes,
to do anything.
Exactly.
But once she made a request, I think it was good that the president.
Yes, I wanted you to deal with the empaneling for me. Okay, so we'll come back empaneling quickly because we have a matter on Wednesday, the interlocutory matter on Wednesday, and somebody made a point that with the speed of light, you made a point that in the
we had a panel within 2 hours,
and the reason judgment delivered on that day. I mean, meanwhile, we know in the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal these days, when you file an application or matter,
2 months, you don't even have
you are not given a date. But in this case, the date was given on the application, which is 2nd April. I'll come to you for your thoughts on that. Honorable, I mean, this whole thing, I mean, where are we supposed to go with this? My worry as a young person is that we may get to a place where we will have, NDC CJs, MPP CJs, NDC EC, MPP EC. So MPP came, they took out Charlotte Osei using the same process. I mean, the same constitutional process. Took out Charlotte Osei.
Which is quite similar to the same.
Now we are hearing this, what's the name, Jim Mensah must go, so somebody sends a petition. It is triggered the same process.
I really wish I had information to send a petition for her removal. She's
taken out.
This CJ is such a
another government comes, an MPP government comes a bit later. They also try to find something against the EC, and then they take her out. NDC government succeeds using the process triggered by petition from citizens of Ghana. CJ is taken out. A new government comes, maybe MPP later. Now the CJ installs, becomes an NDC CJ. MPP comes using the same process, takes that CJ out to put their own person there. I, as a young person, I'm quite worried because we saw Afarijan put there by the Rawlings administration, was there for a long time till he lived, his term. That should be the way it is, because that's when people accused Afarijan of biases, etc., we were quick to point out that, but he was the same guy when you won, the same guy presided by elections that produced NDC as victors and MPP as victors, trying to make a case for his professionalism and his fairness and neutrality, if there's a word like neutrality. Are you not concerned as a key political actor that this concerns from some of us young people, is founded, and that is where we are heading? And I don't know what the future holds if we
well, to be honest with you, let me answer it straightforward. I'm concerned that independent institutions of states are being bastardized in the way that lends political color to it. And the concern is not only limited to Ghana. Even in the United States, when Donald Trump removed the Joint Chief of Staff, who Trump argued that Joint Chief of Staff was made Joint Chief of Staff because of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Old generals of the army said, well, what he was doing was introducing politics into the army. So it is always important to insulate such critical institutions of state against political manipulation. But I'll console you with this observation. In this Fourth Republic, no Chief Justice has been immune from petition for his or her removal. But no Chief Justice has been removed on the basis of the petition files. So I'll console you with that.
I hear you.
Because the bar to surmount in the removal of a Chief Justice is so high that the earlier petitioners have not been able to meet that threshold. And so we don't know the contents of this petition. And so let's wait and see. I understand the force of the argument of my brother and friend, Justice Abdullahi. But I have a contrary view. And that view is found in the Constitution, and particularly Article 146. Now, if you look at Article 1463, when the President receives a petition for the removal of a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, the president forwards the petition to the Chief Justice to determine whether or not the petition raises a prima facie case. So, by parity of reasoning, it is the committee of the Council of State. The council is the Council of State that ought to. Because when the petition is forwarded to the Chief Justice, she determines that. So when the petition is forwarded to the Council of State, the Council of State should determine that. But you see, because a constitutional democracy and the language of the Constitution also matters. In that 146, it says a consultation. But in 143, there's no consultation. So that is where the issue comes into play. Who then determines that? Now, Justice Barr provides an answer. He says, I do not consider it reasonable to infer that they will want the president himself alone to make the prima facie determination in the case of a petition for the removal of a Chief Justice. I consider it reasonable. That is on continue. He says, I consider that the reasonable implication to be made from the context of Article 1466 is that the Council of State should play a prominent role, underlined, in the determination of whether there is a prima facie case against the Chief Justice.
Now, this is not deviating from what I said.
No, so no, it's not deviating. I'm just saying that, and that's why I took issue. When Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, and I respect him a lot because I met him in private practice, and he used to share jokes with me, and I said it did not appear to me upon the reading of the Constitution that Nana Akufo-Addo had the sole responsibility of determining whether Koko Azar's petition
had merit or not.
Had merit or not. And that what he ought to have done was simply to refer the petition to the Council of State, and in consultation with the Council of State, determine that. But so that again is the force of the argument you made.
Yes.
Now, when you read 1466, at what point would the Council of State communicate to the President that a prima facie case has not been made? At what point? Again, so that's a lacuna. That's a lacuna. So that's why I say I appreciate the force of your argument. So that's a lacuna.
So my answer to this, right, would have been this way. The President would only elicit comment from the Council of State in making a determination of a prima facie case. But not that they are the ones making it.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that because these matters have come up, that is why it also attracted the attention of the bar.
Of course.
Because you see, and I agree, that probably you need regulations to determine how they go about all these things. Because of the lack of regulations, we are all reading into how that should be done. Now, I also agree with you that sending the petition on request to the Chief Justice was an act of good faith, demonstrating a commitment to the principles of good governance, fairness, and transparency. Also, showing that the President in this case is an honest broker. Honest broker. He's just doing it because a petition has been received. We pray that the Chief Justice will, the Supreme Court, the Council of State will use the same principles of fairness, principles of transparency, and I agree with Franklin Kujo, except that the court says that you don't expose the office of the Chief Justice to scorn and ridicule through vexatious and frivolous applications. That is why it appears that the prima facie case is intended to act as a sieve
And not just that, that is also part of the reason why it is in camera.
Yeah, in camera.
That's part of the reason. In fact, that is the primary objective.
So you insulate that office. So even a clear reading of the provision of one process to tell you that the Constitution treats the judiciary, and particularly the office of the Chief Justice, with some degree of sanctity, and clothes it with dignity and respect, that it doesn't want to expose our Chief Justice to scorn and approbation or opprobrium. And so we need to balance, and that's why, again, you look at, in all arguments, there appears to be a conscious attempt to reconcile the public right to know with the protection of the dignity and sanctity of the judiciary.
We'll go for a break soon, but let me make some intervention. I mean, I have before me the press release in respect of the petition he dismissed, the President Nana Addo dismissed in respect of the Chief Justice Takonu, that the Council of State was not consulted is not accurate, because the statement says the Office of the President wishes to inform the general public that after a thorough and careful review of the petition for the removal of the Chief Justice Takonu, the President of the Republic, in consultation with the Council of State, has concluded that the petition does not disclose a prima facie case warranting further action. The petition was submitted by Professor Azar, citing allegations of misbehavior and all of that. Yeah.
If this statement is coming from, because my reading of that, and clearly, I think you also had that reading.
That's what I said.
So let me read the conclusion, the penultimate paragraph. Based on these findings and observations, and in alignment with the recommendations of the Council of State, the petition is deemed frivolous, vexatious, and unmeritorious. Clearly. And the President reaffirms...
It's the President that made the determination.
Yes, he makes it in consultation.
Yeah, but he makes it.
Yes, but he's the principal. He consults.
Yes.
So he's the principal who consults.
So for me, I didn't... My thinking and the communications that came out, I didn't see this.
Honestly, I didn't see the part of the consultation with the Council of State.
I didn't see it too.
So this has always been my position, that they didn't consult them.
So I think
it's not that they have said that.
And I withdraw that part of it.
In fact, not only you, I also withdraw that part. Because that is the procedure. And I have argued consistently that the communication seemed to suggest that the President had arrogated to himself
the sole discretion.
So that's good. And it's good that they have timeously sent this thing to you to read to the public. And I agree entirely with them. And from now on, I will not say that the President took the decision.
And your friend Richard Sky was the one who made this intervention.
So I agree. So clearly, now let me say these things and in conclusion. You see, it is an act of good governance that you do things in the way as to invest trust in state institutions. You do things in the way as to ensure effective and ethical leadership. It's very important. Now, I was saying that in dealing with matters of this nature, particularly when we have when the President has an invidious responsibility to respect the architecture of our governance system, where power, Article 57, 58 of the Constitution clearly vests that authority of the executive in the President. Where 93 is saying that the legislative power of the state is vested in Parliament. Where 125 says that the judicial powers of state is vested, clearly telling you that this our system. Everybody will be under the lane. Everybody should follow his lane. But because of checks and balances, there are certain things that ought to be done. And those things should be done within the confines of the law wanting a Chief Justice out does not automatically get the Chief Justice out.
The process must be followed.
You must demonstrate. For instance, stated misbehavior. The Chief Justice is supposed to be non-political. Then you have evidence that the Chief Justice was somewhere else campaigning for people to vote
for a particular
party. It's stated misbehavior. Stated. I mean, if that evidence can be proven. Or you have evidence that the Chief Justice directed somebody, like in the Frank Aduchum case, to write a judgment in a certain way. Stated misbehavior. Or incompetence.
And incompetence we understand so well. Because of our last 2 elections.
Incompetence in terms of the performance of a judicial duties
or
administrative. Infirmity of mind is simple. But even there, a medical tribunal will have to be established. So you see, that's why.
So there are enough safeguards.
Safeguards. There are enough.
See,
but in conclusion, let's all wait, because if politics was to get a Chief Justice out, Justice I.K. Aban
would have been out.
You remember Justice I.K. Aban?
Yes. The missing pages.
But that didn't get Justice Aban out. So let's wait. That's why the Supreme.
The story of Apollo is also.
Apollo?
Yes.
Apollo?
Good one.
Apollo?
Very good one.
The 2-4 versus Attorney
Apollo? And Apollo, again, politics was read into it. That the executive then was demanding for Apollo to reappear before Parliament. So the Parliament will
we'll disqualify him or remove him.
And it did happen.
It did happen. The intervention of Tufan Attorney General
saved the situation. You understand? So there are many, you can countless. That's why I'm saying, as a young man, you should assure yourself that the handle is.
There are enough safeguards. All right, so we'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the other parts of this, and then we'll make progress and move to the AG and other matters. But of course, there's a question about empaneling. Justice has to answer. And we'll also be joined by no, it's not, by Vincent Esefua, who is petitioner in the matter. What becomes of his rate? The Honourable Isaac has said that in his view that the matter should still continue because it's not moot, so that we know what the future holds. We have clearly a reasoned judgment on matters like this for the future. Yes, we'll see what the petitioner himself thinks. This is a big issue, 97.3 City FM. The views, your comments are welcome via 020-444-7033 on WhatsApp or 0549-986-996. We'll be right back, don't go away.
You're going to come with me.
Why must I?
Don't worry, when we get there, I'll explain. I don't want to do it here. But like I said, I've been following you for a while. I work with the CID. Let's go have a conversation, okay?
And what am I doing here?
Wait, I'll tell you. What's cooking? I've brought the acclaimed, the famed, the infamous Judge Louis Lamis to join me here in the kitchen.
I always want to make people taste or bite on the ginger, the pepper. It has its unique taste and flavor it gives to the meal. So aside the paste, I love to add these ones so people can bite into them when they eat the food.
Or before I say texture. To give it some texture.
Give it some texture. I'm learning these vocabs. Give me small water.
Oh.
A little more than you pour everything. So now if the thing doesn't cook well, who should we blame?
It will be you.
As there are judges here, in fact, all rise.
Why are you like this?
What's Cooking is brought to you by Tasty Tom, Kivo Pepper, and Susie Herbal Center.
Our heritage is all we have, and as the years unfold without proper archiving, we may lose it. From the days of oral storytelling and now to having a whole library filled with hundreds of thousands of books to help us remember our heritage. Paul Ninson, an archivist, photographer, founder and executive director of Dikain, will be our guest.
This is the last clock of Kwame Nkrumah in Kokri, Guinea, in his office, his last office.
It's heavier?
Yes. This is Kwame Nkrumah's last pen in his office in Kokri, Guinea.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Accompanying him will be Ancient Ghana Band, who took us back home to our indigenous music. Join Selorm Adonoo this Sunday on the Upside Down Show at 7 p.m. prompt, only on Channel 1 TV.
You're welcome back. This is the big issue, 97.3 City FM. We're just having a nice time around the matters of the CJ, the petition to remove the CJ and matters that have arisen. CJ's request for the petitions against her to be shared with her. The president has done so, giving her 10 days to respond and all of that, and then the process will continue from there. Even before the CJ wrote to the president, two persons, one member of parliament, also of course a citizen of Ghana, went to the Supreme Court to invoke the original jurisdiction of that institution on certain matters, seeking about 5 reliefs. But the gravamen of this petition, of this rate, really hovers around whether or not the president should have shared a copy of the petition with the Chief Justice before forwarding it to the Council of State. And that matter is quite replete in all the reliefs being sought. So, for example, Relief 1 is a declaration that upon a true and proper interpretation of Articles 146, 124, and 6 and 7, 23, Articles 23, 57, 3, and 296 of the Constitution, the President is mandated to notify the CJ about a petition for her removal and obtain his or her comments and responses to the content of said petition before, the operative word is before, referring the petition to the Council of State or commencing the consultation process with the Council of State for the removal of the Chief Justice. The other ones flow from here. Vincent Asifua has joined us on the line on Zoom to help us appreciate what becomes of his rate now that on phone, to help us appreciate what has become of the petition or of the rate, given that the CJ now, I believe, has copies because the president has directed that she be furnished with copies. Vincent Asifua, Honorable, good morning. Welcome to the big issue. You, of course, know that the CJ wrote to the president has responded and then shared copies of the petitions with her. Does this answer your question? And where does this leave your rate?
All right. So let me say a very good morning to you and to your able discussant, especially Boama. He's a strong man because yesterday we left Parliament around 3 a.m. And so for him to gather enough energy to come and sit to the studio, doff my heart out to him. So, as we speak, and rarely so, the relief that I was seeking for from the Supreme Court in its proper sense, especially with respect to the injunction bit, becomes moot. However, when you look at the architecture of our governance system, it is important that sometimes you allow certain writs to be before the court for proper interpretation so as to forestall future reoccurrence. So if you remember the case of the G.H. Mensah, says the Attorney General, when G.H. Mensah went to court that some ministers would have to be vetted. I think that around the same time, the President of the Republic caused those ministers to go through a form of vetting, or if you like, Parliament allowed for a form of vetting for them, which meant that the relief that was sought for by J.H. Mensah was now moved. But of course, the purposes of making sure that in future we do not have such reoccurrence in terms of its procedural impropriety, then it becomes necessary to allow the case to be heard by the Supreme Court for a true and proper interpretation of what Article 146 is. And so, yes, it seems that the release that I was seeking for has been confirmed by His Excellency the President and made sure that he notified the Chief Justice, for the Chief Justice to give some comments and responses to the three petitions to enable the President of the Republic of Ghana to establish a prima facie. So I will allow the process to continue so that we will have a definite ruling or a definite conclusion as to how these matters will have to be dealt with in future in the event that we are not able to review our constitution sooner than later.
I see. Interesting. But there's also the view that there is no law which says the president should provide the respondent, in this case, with the petitions. There's no law also that says that the president should not. So it solely rests in the bosom of the respondent. If you are minded to have copies, why not? You'll be given copies. So what the Chief Justice did in this case was to request copies. And people say that if the president had refused that request, then maybe some of these concerns you are raising or your rates may really be very useful. But now, there's no law. If you ask, you'll be given. You have not asked, and so you've not been given. Or you have asked, and you'll be given. So it settles matters. It depends on what you as a respondent want to do. What do you say to this?
Well, I disagree with you because if you look at Article 8 and 11 or so, I wish I was with my constitution now, but I think it's around Article 11 that allows the
Article 11 is a hierarchy of laws.
11.
Yes.
No, 146.11.
Okay, 146.11. Okay.
Yes, that allows the president to suspend the Chief Justice.
I think 10.
It's 10, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yes.
That allows the Chief Justice to be suspended when the process is ongoing. And so it is my belief that, yes, to that end, I agree with you that there's no clear law stated black and white as to whether or not the president would have to notify the Chief Justice in this instance. But because of Article 146.10, where the Chief Justice can be suspended, it is my belief that
he's confused.
Reading the Constitution as a whole, reading the whole of Article 146 as a whole, and the suspension is going to affect the right of the Chief Justice, it is proper that we read meanings into the Constitution to include the President informing or, if you like, notifying the Chief Justice. And so that is my belief. That is why I'm going to court, or that is why I went to court, for a true and proper interpretation of the Constitution. You see, when you check Article 146.3, which deals with, and of course, the whole of Article 146.3 deals with two things. One, suspend, what do you call it? The petition that goes against a Supreme Court judge, if you have to remove a Supreme Court judge, and if you also have to remove a Chief Justice. These are the two key things that Article 146 deals with. The 146.3 talks about the removal of a Supreme Court judge, but it gives the Chief Justice the authority to establish a prima facie case or evidence against the Supreme Court judge if there's a petition against that person. Now, parity of reason, I believe that if you read the combined effect of 146.3 and that of the 146.6, which 146.6 is about the removal of the Chief Justice, someone will have to establish a prima facie case because, first and foremost, the Chief Justice is the Supreme Court judge, and for that matter, if someone is supposed to, as it were, decide on the fact that, yes, indeed, the Chief Justice will have to be removed, and a suspension can also be triggered against that Supreme Court judge or that Chief Justice, then someone will have to establish a prima facie. And so that is why it is in my belief that when the Constitution is very clear that the President will consult the Council of State to appoint a committee before that consultation, there should have been a prima facie evidence to have been established against the Chief Justice. And in my belief, also in my understanding, I think that it is the President who should establish that, even though it has not been stated black and white. I also believe that in reading the Constitution, in interpreting the Constitution, one cannot lose sight of the spirit of the Constitution. If we want to say that, and in your own words, there is no law that states that the President should establish a prima facie case, which I agree with you, but the spirit of the Constitution is key, which will espouse the intent of the framers of the Constitution, so that in interpreting the Constitution, you do not get to a point where after the interpretation there's absurdity. No. I believe that after the interpretation of the Constitution, every well-meaning Ghanaian will know that yes, this is reasonable. It is on that basis that I believe that even though it has not been stated black and white, but a meaning can be impugned in it to bring about the reasonability of Article 146 of the Constitution.
I see. My guests disagree with you on some aspects. I'll start off with Justice Abdullah if he has a comment or two to make.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. So, Vincent, so this is it. So the position I was addressing, I mean, when you mention 14610, the 14610 doesn't come in until the actual removal processes commences. It doesn't come when the President is making the determination of a prima facie case. That's not when it starts. It is rather the latter. Once the prima facie case has been made and the committee has been set up by the President, it is only at that point when, say, the ongoing proceedings commences. Then the President may determine, of course, once again, in consultation with the Council of State. And this is very crucial to the extent that it is not just the commencement of the proceedings that would inform the President to suspend the Chief Justice. But I think it would rather be the crucial decision as to whether the removing or suspending the Chief Justice is important.
Exactly.
particularly to ensure that he does not, for instance, interfere with the activities. So these are the things that would inform the president in determining whether the suspension should be triggered or otherwise. But like I said, it would only be triggered at the tail end when the proceedings actually start. So it doesn't start before the prima facie case is determined. That's all I.
But I think that the point he's making is,
Yeah.
if without, let me see if I could summarize your point.
No,
The point he's making is, if Vincent, just hang on there. The point he's making is, if the prima facie determination is made without the input of the respondent of the CJ, that determination has been made. The next step is to set up the committee.
Exactly.
And you may suspend him or her.
Yes.
And so without her input, she's been suspended.
I agree.
And so he is thinking, and others think that that's unfair. At least give her a hearing, so that perhaps her input will diffuse the case being sought to be made against her. And so if you hear her compared to the petition, they can say, oh, okay, they said they found her at Makola doing something. No, in fact, on that day she was in the US. And these are the records of the past, everything.
That is what the committee is supposed to determine.
Yeah, but you see, without that, you could suspend her because the prima facie case would have been made, and you could actually set up the committee and may suspend her. So on matters which are really frivolous, she would have had to suffer suspension. When given the opportunity, she could have diffused that. You get the point? That's why it's important to perhaps hear her.
No, but that cannot be a basis for her to be heard. That cannot be a basis.
I see.
The fear of being suspended cannot be a reason to be heard.
But in fairness,
no, it is also not the opposite. If you say in fairness, then you are presupposing that it is already unfair. But that's the system.
No, but suspending her for something she may not have done is unfair.
But you see, there's something that she may not have done would only be determined by the committee.
Once it's on suspension.
Once it's on suspension. But that's why she defends herself before the committee. So you see, you're making it sound as though the president, in establishing a prima facie case, has already found her guilty. That is not how it is.
Yes, but
and the suspension is only part of the due process. Suspension is not a punishment. It's actually an integral part of due process. So that she, the same way that we are seeking to be fair to her, she also treats us fairly. So that's how the system is designed. It's a win-win.
Okay.
It's not as if you have to be treated fairly, but you don't owe us an obligation to treat us fairly.
Very well.
So the due process is simply the rule of law. And the rule of law has two legs: substantive law and procedural law.
Absolutely.
So the procedure is provided in Article 146. So we go and read Bejina, what's the name? Moshe and Bejina. Or you read NHTC and Boifu. So where the procedure is provided, it's incumbent to follow the procedure.
Nothing more.
And nothing else. And that procedure is simply this. Until a prima facie case is determined, you cannot suspend the Chief Justice. In fact, until the committee is set up, you can't.
Even after determining
you can't. Yes. And then that is again, there's a discussion. The president may decide, even though they set up the committee,
yes, it's a miss.
Not suspend that.
Which is why the suspension is informed by the very petition itself and the matters surrounding it. So if the petition is not as crucial to the president, such that, for instance, the Chief Justice can interfere, there will be never a suspension.
Because that is the Article 297 imposes on the president in the exercise of a discretion. 296 to be fair and candid.
Great.
So, but I thought that when you asked the question, and I believe that after hearing you read the first relief being sought, I believe that it should go before the courts.
It should go before the court.
The matter should continue. Yeah, it should continue. It is seeking a declaratory judgment that in matters of this nature, the president must forward the petition. So let's see whether the Supreme Court will agree to that procedure. And if the Supreme Court agrees, it now becomes part of the law. It solves your problem of there being
No law.
Very well. Isaac, what do you say to Vincent's matters?
Yeah, so I had already expressed that I think it's important for the case to be continued, of course, as Leonard Counsel also indicated, so that we can get some declarations from the Supreme Court to guide our discourse. Importantly, if you look at the composition of the Council of State, we have a former Chief Justice, the former Chief Justice as part of the composition. I know. I'm saying that. So even in consultation with Council of State, because of the composition of the Council of State, it is not easy for the Council of State to bow to political influence and pressure to say that because this is if the petition is frivolous, they would agree to advise the president to proceed. So we should also look at why the framers of the Constitution tied this process to the Council of State based on the composition of the Council of State. And then once you get that, you also look at the powers of the Council of State to seek for counsel or advice, expert advice in determining certain decisions of the Council of State. So if the Council of State, when they receive petitions of this nature, can decide to set up a body of experts to review and advise the Council of State, even before the Council of State can also advise the President in one way or the other. So inherent in these provisions are safeguards to ensure that the interest of the judiciary is protected, the interest of the Chief Justice is protected, and then when it flows also, and I agree, when you look at the basis, the Constitution said the President may. It is not a shall compelling the President to suspend. So that in suspending the Chief Justice, the President and the Council of State should be satisfied that the nature of the petitions and the circumstances around them would
require her to be suspended.
To step aside.
Okay.
Yeah, just a brief comment, and that's why he said something which triggered this comment. He said that it is for good reason that the Constitution says that the petition be referred to the Council of State.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine that the Constitution could have said that the petition should be referred to Parliament for Parliament because in the United States, impeachment impeachment is done by Congress. The UK, the same thing by Parliament, Houses of Lords. Now, so it should give you an indication of what agitated the minds of the framers of the Constitution to insulate the removal of a Chief Justice from partisan consideration.
So, Vincent, I mean, consensus around the table is that you should continue. Of course, you have said you will continue. You should continue. Let's see what the Supreme Court says about this. Any final words on this?
Let me try and engage my senior Justice Abdullah. Senior, respectfully, if you check the 1466 again, it just talks about the fact that as soon as the petition has been received by the President, the next line of action is the President consulting the Council of State, right?
Yes.
It is the same reasoning that the intent of the framers of the Constitution, like the drafters of the Constitution, replicated at Article 146(10).
Okay.
And see, if you read the first line, it says that where a petition has been referred to a committee under this article, where a petition, it is also saying that the next line of action is the President suspending the Chief Justice in accordance with the advice of the Council of State. You understand?
Yes.
So it's the same thing that has been replicated kind of in terms of procedure.
Yes.
So my point is that there is something inherently in there. That something with respect to Article 1466 is first and foremost a prima facie.
Yes.
That will have to be established by the President. Secondly, also inherent in the 10 is the President, as it were, establishing the prima facie, but will have to do so with, if you like, consulting the Council of State. I don't know if you get my point.
Okay, I'm trying hard to get this particular one because
So
Yes.
there's something inherent.
Yes.
Inherent in the prima facie.
Yes.
In the 1466.
Absolutely.
And also inherent in the 10.
Yes.
10A
Yes.
is also is the prima facie.
Yes.
So in terms of procedure, the 1466 inherently has the prima facie.
Absolutely.
And also, in terms of procedure, the 10, because the president can suspend the Chief Justice at any time after the petition, it is proper.
No, so Vincent, that is where the disagreement starts from. So
that's why I'm going to call for that true and proper interpretation.
No, so Vincent, so this is where the disagreement
I agree
is.
with you because it is the black and white.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
But inherent in there is the prima facie that will have to be replicated when you want to bring about the fact that the president should have consulted the Chief Justice, or the president should consult the Chief Justice before the suspension will come in.
Okay. So it is right to say that the president consults the Council of State before the suspension takes place. However, the stage that the president has to invoke this consultation is indicated that it is only when
the committee has been set
up.
Yeah.
Do you get it, Vincent?
Yeah. A proper case has been determined and the committee has been set up.
So it's only when the committee has been set up.
Yeah.
And if we go by the current petition and the communications from the presidency, the president had already indicated his willingness, his intention to solicit the views of the CJ, even before the letter came. For me, it is only sad that that intention was not actualized before the CJ's letter came, because if that had come, for me, it would have beautified this process even way better than my good friend mentions, that even notwithstanding all that has happened, he still calls it a very good process, better than what we are used to. But just imagine if the president's intentions had been actualized before the CJ's letter came. This would have been a wonderful procedure, but unfortunately, it would still not have been enough to set a precedent to guide all of us going forward.
I see. Great. So, Vincent, we thank you so much. Good job. I understand you're going back to Parliament today. Let the national interest be the key, as always.
Oh, you're going back.
They are going to rise. They are going to rise today.
That's what I thought.
So, thanks so much, Vincent. We'll talk again a bit later. Yeah. So we are concluding on this part. We've almost concluded. People don't understand why the court will sit on Wednesday, and it's the same CJ that will empanel the committee or the panel to hear a case that concerns her. Of course, this matter has been settled, administrative duty, judicial duty. But for the purposes of those listeners, for the purposes of those listening and watching, why should the CJ be the one to empanel a bench to determine a matter that concerns her? And those with little learning will say, doesn't that amount to being a judge in your own cause, as Brata Kutenku argued in the Judicial matter?
So the answer is provided indeed in that case. And indeed, as my learned senior mentioned earlier, the learning at the LLB level mostly is that the Judicial only provides the ratio on the principles of natural justice. And so where the CJ had to empanel members of the Supreme Court that were sitting in a matter that he had interest in. Of course, it was also an issue of the removal of the CJ at the time. And the court was quite emphatic on that indeed the CJ wears two hats. And these two hats operate differently. When he sits as a member of the Supreme Court, he wears a judicial hat. When he sits in his office, determining who gets employed, who gets demoted, who gets promoted, who gets to sit on a matter, that is a purely administrative issue. And so the two are not one and the same. And unfortunately, the Constitution doesn't provide who takes care of that job. There's no alternative arrangement. So even if in reality and in fact, it breaches the principles of natural justice, because there's no alternative route in dealing with that. That is what...
Is it a thing you think the Constitution Review Committee should look at? Because, I mean, you just look at it. you are going to determine a matter that concerns me. I know all of you as justices. I know who supports me and who doesn't support me. And if I'm the one to choose who sits on the matter, let us forget for a moment that it's in the Constitution.
Yes.
How does it sound? I will choose the people to sit. Then they'll give me the outcome I want.
Ordinarily, I mean, you're absolutely right. And indeed, it breaches the entire understanding that we all have of the principles of natural justice, that you cannot be a judge in your own cause. Even though in this particular case, you'll be an indirect judge in your own cause. Because, I mean, if you can determine who sits on the matter, then you should as well sit on the matter. Because really,
or maybe we take consolation in the fact that the justices are to be independent.
That's what they have said.
No matter what, when you sit up there and you wear the wig, I mean, you do the job as independently as you can, possible, with the law as your guiding principle.
That is what it ought to be. And indeed, unfortunately, we have the same structure in the very issue that we are discussing in the removal of the CJ. It's the president that receives the petition. The president determines the prima facie case. The president determines who gets to sit on the panel that removes the CJ.
And that one is in consultation.
Yeah. He still has the ultimate decision to make. What the president does is just the same as appointment of ministers. He finds my senior desirable as a minister in charge of natural resources. He informs the Council of State that this is the person I want to appoint as a minister of natural resources. What do you think? I mean, what do you think they would say? You can't object. You may have your views, but the president still has a veto over those views. He said, okay, I understand what you have said. Well, because he probably misconducted himself in the past. Maybe you don't think. I still trust that he's the best person to deliver. So he still goes ahead.
Contrary view.
Oh, no. I think that empaneling the Supreme Court is a statutory duty. And common law principles on the rule or in the hierarchy of responsibilities or rights or duties, statutory duties which breach or infringe common law principles of natural justice, supersede. Those statutory duties will supersede. The statute will supersede common law principles. And it's so. And those principles evolved out of practice.
Yeah, practice.
And so when the statute comes in, it displaces that.
Yeah.
And in the Afranca Ajechum,
yes,
the judge cautions us relying on previous cases. And I can cite a plethora of cases. Bilson and they have all come to the conclusion, and this is settled, that the Chief Justice has a duty to empanel the court.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, so that's the law now.
I'm saying that,
that's the law.
And they say that, look, you can't think of judges as being malleable clay.
That settles it.
Yes, and for the benefit of our listeners and news others, it is important we trust our institutions of state. It's important we trust the courts, particularly the Supreme Court, that is supposed to be our final arbiter in terms of matters. And if you look at the appointment of justices of the Supreme Court, it is not done by the Chief Justice. It is an appointment that is initiated by the President. And so if and it goes through a very laborious process, including Parliament, to approve someone to be a judge. So the powers of the Chief Justice to empanel,
for that matter.
Supreme Court, yes. So the powers of the Chief Justice to empanel, it's only an administrative duty. And you cannot in any reasonable contemplation think that because the Chief Justice empanels a team, that team will speak and sing and think the way she wants. Then there's no basis in having these individuals sitting on the bench. So we need to assuage the fears of the Ghanaian. We need to assuage ourselves that yes, you may have and at times when you look at the way we structure our laws, you cannot solve all the problems the way you want to. So somebody has to take a decision.
Absolutely.
Somebody would have to make some determinations. But then you want to make sure that in those determinations and in those decision-making processes, the independence of the people who are to sit and make those determinations are also protected. And I believe that we can cure some of these mischiefs by, again, studying. And we shouldn't just, out of fear, say, let's take these powers off. When we study and when we come to the conclusion, after we've tested these processes over time, then we can come to certain conclusions that, yes, since we saw abuses in these areas, then let's find another way of curing those mischiefs. Beyond that, I think it is.
So just add that in that Frank Aduchim case, Sophia Akufo was the Chief Justice, and she started on the panel.
No, not Sophia Akufo, Chief Justice.
Yes.
What's her name? Georgina Wood.
And she goes on the panel.
Yeah, but I said Sophia Akufo. Georgina Wood.
No.
No, Sophia Akufo was not Chief Justice at the time. This was
He was presiding. She was presiding. Wood was on the panel.
Yeah, Wood was on the panel.
And agreed with the decision of the panel.
Yeah.
Then to my brother, lecturer, the Nemo Judex
in Kosaswa.
Enim JA in Bilson and Apollo said, you are stretching it.
Yes.
In this particular case, it's not performing a judicial duty.
Yes.
It's performing administrative duty.
Yes.
So how can that principle apply?
Stretch it to absurdity.
I see. All right, interesting. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll now deal with the Attorney General and the way he's handling matters. Transparency or media trial? Don't go away.
Politics meets power, where the tough questions are asked. Welcome to Face to Face. Every Tuesday at 9 p.m., join Umaru Sanda Amadou as he takes you face to face with the key players shaping the future of our nation.
I lost over $10 million at the trade fair.
You had a fight with the management of trade fair?
I don't have a fight with them. I just deplore the way they went about what they did.
Let's talk about the chief prosecutor of the state at the time that you were being prosecuted, Godfrey Adame, the Attorney General.
Yes. I think he was directed to jail us.
By who?
By the system.
Boku has been a failure for your government, though.
Can't be a failure.
You have not solved it.
No, you are not praising them, the previous government for solving Yende, which was even a more difficult case.
It's quite obvious that from these votes, the people felt that let's just let you go.
So they were disappointed in
us.
You are essentially the worst government in the Fourth Republic.
I don't know how you are doing that. If you based on the indicators.
Yes, based on the number of people who refuse to come and vote for you.
If that is your analysis, then why not?
No filter, no boundaries, just the truth behind the headlines. Deep, bold, and unflinching. Face to Face with Umaru Sanda Amadou airs on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. only on Channel 1 TV, where politics gets real.
You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue, 97.3 City FM, Channel 1 Television, of course, on all our socials. We're having an interesting discussion. We just finished the part about the Chief Justice, matters around her removal, her request for the petitions, etc. And my guests have made their points on this. Let me take a funny one that came from somebody. It says that is squeezing a face at Mahama or putting up a smiley face to Nanado a stated misbehavior. Well, I mean, you can decide that for yourself. Yeah. So, I mean, so we are moving on to the next matter. Attorney General Dominic Ayini, distinguished law lecturer, or senior law lecturer, has been on a roll. I mean, he started by discontinuing some matters in court. He appeared to before the media to explain or justify those. Now, he started some investigations. There were some searches. He said we shouldn't call them raids. Searches in houses of some prominent people, including the former governor of the BOG and a few others. Those were done with warrant, and so that is legal. He came to explain that as well. But importantly, on last Monday, he brought to the fore the matter of Mr. Dubois, the former Director General of the National Signals Bureau, where he alleged that he had diverted huge sums of money in excess of $7 million into private accounts, and also had questionable acquisition of some properties, including 27 houses in an estate at Oyarifa, about 6 or 7 houses at Mayfair, about 2 houses in the UK, and a few other things. People have said that, you have concluded on the guilt of the man before even starting a case in court, and that what he did amounted to media trial. Others have said no. There's a reason why in the law of the Special Prosecutor, the Office of the Special Prosecutors Act, he is supposed to at least twice a year meet the media and tell the media what he is doing because of transparency. So the question is Dr. Ayeni, in pursuant of the transparency question, doing this to ensure that the public knows what's happening, or it is simply to try the matter in the court of public opinion? That's our discussion. Of course, we saw press conferences and comments from the minority in Parliament on this particular matter. They think that if he has enough, the place to go is the court. And as we speak, indeed, the gentleman, Dubois from court yesterday, when he was asked whether he's been charged, said no charge has been preferred against him as yet, and that he was still waiting, and he thinks he will definitely come out of this. Yes, so let me start off with Honorable Isaac Boama. We want transparency, but we don't want media trial as well. Will you fault the Attorney General for informing the public of the job he is doing?
Thank you very much. I think the Attorney General, if you go into Article 88 of our Constitution, the Attorney General is supposed to be the Attorney General for the Republic and also the principal legal advisor to the President. And the Constitution imposes certain duties on the Attorney General. 2, that the AG is to discharge such duties of legal nature as may be referred or assigned to him by the President or imposed on him by this Constitution or any other law. The Constitution, again, at 3, gives the Attorney General a responsibility to initiate and conduct all proceedings or all prosecutions of criminal offenses. The same law or Constitution at 4 says that all offenses prosecuted in the name of the Republic should or shall be at the instance of the Attorney General or as authorized by him. So if you take all the ministers or ministerial appointments that the President can make, the only appointment that has a constitutional responsibility is the role of the responsibilities of the Attorney General. And so it is a very big responsibility imposed on the AG to ensure that in all his duties and in all his functions, the rights of individuals are protected. So in these instances where, for example, I wouldn't want to go too far in when he took office, and some of his earliest interest was to start with entering nolle prosequi and withdrawal of cases. Because the Attorney General is seized with a whole number of cases. And I wonder what had arisen his interest to select those cases in a matter of days to withdraw and also to enter nolle prosequi in them. To the extent that one of them, the governor of the central bank, right after the withdrawal of his cases, 2 days later, he was given appointment to take the responsibilities of the central bank. And so when you get these signals at the very onset of the performance of the Attorney General, then we all as citizens ought to review some of the actions of the Attorney General and see if he's acting in the overall best interest of the state, or he's balancing his activities as Attorney General from a political lens and perspective. There's nothing wrong for the Attorney General to engage the media and give briefings to the public in terms of the conduct of his activities. And I would encourage every Attorney General to engage and give information, because when my brother Franklin Kujo was making issues about, even when it comes to the Chief Justice and his removal petitions, why do we want to keep these things away from the public? Because we are all interested Ghanaians, and it is important that people get information on decisions that people we have given responsibilities to run the affairs of this state on our behalf, to engage us and give us updates on their actions, their inactions, and so that we deepen the issues of accountability for this country. So I have no problem with the Attorney General engaging the public. But the concern is, when you engage the public, what kind of information do you put out there for public consumption? Because we are talking about interest of the Attorney General and that of the interest of the people you are putting information across. So if the Attorney General or anybody acting in that capacity is not mindful to give accurate information into the public space, not prejudging the determination of those matters that are actually to go to court, then it becomes a concern. What are we talking about here? If you are embarking on investigations into matters of corruption or into matters of crime, yours as an Attorney General is to be seized with the fact as the investigating bodies have conducted. And then the AG reviews those facts. If you think there are questions for those people to answer, you prepare your docket, you charge them formally in court, and let everybody have their day in the courts of competent jurisdiction. When you don't exhaust these processes, and then you engage the media and begin to put information across as if those informations are cast in stone, are verified, and have been determined, then it becomes a problem. Because at the end of the day, the people that you are talking about, or the people that you are raising their issues before the public, they are not there to defend themselves.
But the people themselves could also go and address the press and say what they want to say.
No, but you are the AG. You are supposed to be the number one legal person for the Republic. And you are not only seeking your interest as AG, but you are supposed to protect the interest of all Ghanaians. And so when you are putting information across and you are not very much guided or mindful, you may always slip and enter into certain areas that people would have concerns with.
But do you think that the information he put out about Eduboahin was excessive? Because he just said that we saw money move from here to here. We saw also that around the same time some acquisitions were made and all of that. Would that be excessive? Would that be putting out too much?
I have given a general context of the performance or the actions of the AG vis-a-vis areas from the raid into Ken Ofori-Attah's house, the raid into the governor of Bank of Ghana, and then this development. When I mirror through these three angles, I see inconsistencies in the way the AG has conducted himself, the way the deputy AG who just got appointed has also conducted himself. And then I come to the conclusion at the point of Eduboahin that the AG is giving so much information that is not required for the public, because these are criminal matters. And criminal matters, the person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And the way to do this case is in the court of competent jurisdiction, not the court of public opinion. So when you come into the public space and you put an information there, and that information is yet to be tested. If you come and tell somebody that he moved money from one account to the other and he has properties and all of those, have those issues been determined by a court? That is your view, that is your opinion. The AG goes to court every day. He wins some cases, he loses some cases. And so why are you putting out and these informations there when the informations have not been tested, when it has not been pronounced upon? And so if later you go to court and it turns out that some of the information you put out there were inaccurate, are we getting everybody that heard you the first time to also get to know that this is what happened in court? And if you are maligned and defame people, how do the people come back to get their reputation? And so I think the AG it's within its right to engage. It is within its right to brief Ghanaians on matters. But the information that he puts across, he should also be mindful of the interest of others. He should also be mindful that the integrity or the issue, and you know, we are in a country where people are presumed guilty even before their cases are heard. We are in this matter, and that was the issue I raised with even the Office of the Special Prosecutor. How many cases have been the Special Prosecutor initiated? And where have we gotten to? How many convictions has he secured? How many recoveries has he made? Nothing. Almost nothing. It is absolutely nothing. Over how many years have we set up the office of the OSP to give some credibility into corruption and corruption-related activities? What is the AG prosecuting on? Is it matters of corruption and corruption-related matters? Which body is seized with the mandate? Is it the AG or the Office of the Special Prosecutor?
The AG too, but Special Prosecutor is like a specialty.
No, when it comes to corruption and corruption-related matters, it is the purview of the Special Prosecutor.
But I'm not sure
the AG is dealing with criminal matters.
Okay.
He will be looking at criminal prosecution. And that is where you need.
But it doesn't remove him. Because the power is taken from is part of it is what he gives to the
of course. Just some coins.
Yeah.
So let me just end by saying that I think the AG so far, his actions for me leaves a lot to be desired. But at the end of the day, he started on a footing which requires that he becomes more circumspect. It is good to engage. It is good to brief. And at times, even in these matters, you don't need to hold press conferences where people are asking you questions and then you veer off. You can structure the information, give press releases, so that everybody who wants to be informed about what you are doing, we can all go to those matters, read them, and then leave the commentary and the other matters for the lawyers and others to comment and so on and so forth.
I see. Justice,
Yes.
what do you think? I mean, he enjoys the media. I mean, giving information to the media. I mean, the AG enjoys.
That's so unfair.
Don't take me out of context. I started by saying that he enjoys transparency, or his style appears to be opening it up for everybody to see, and we've seen that over some time. He appears. He wants people to know what he's doing. But others also misinterpret that.
No, honestly, I think it's a commendable thing. And I'm happy that for Honorable coming from an MPP side, also finds it a commendable feat. Because it's very difficult in our polarized political space for your opponents to praise you for your conduct. And then, so I find his conduct very, very commendable and indeed bold enough. Because very few people will do that and even admit that if something is right, we have to give glory to it. And people would undermine you, notwithstanding the goodness in your deeds in this country because of political colorization. And So having said that, I am on all for with most of the things he said about the AG's conduct in engaging the general public. As I've indicated always, that for me, everything that reinforces the transparency and the rule of law is something that I'll go for, and I commend the AG for doing that, because you see, if the AG acts in the dark, we would never find him worthy of his office. The only reason why today, for instance, we are questioning the existence of the OSP is because we don't really see what is happening in that office. And the only time you would see something happening there is to see him in court. And in court, the OSP has less than 2 cases in court. I mean, I hear just about 3 pending. And no conviction, nothing. And so even if they are doing something as we speak, on the ground, under the ground, because we are not aware of it, we would naturally condemn the existence of, or we question the existence of the office. And so for the AG to be doing this, for me, it's a very commendable thing. And it's also very important because the political party, being the NDC, campaigned and largely won elections on the basis of corruption, the corruption that the Akufo-Addo administration was noted for, at least from the perspective of the NDC. And if you look at the numbers that went into the elections and the numbers that the NDC came out with, it's obvious that indeed people believed that the Akufo-Addo administration was a bad administration, whether it be on the basis of the corruption or on the basis of other things, economic or other things. It still stands to reason that if you win an election on the basis of corruption, and you have commenced action against people that you deem to be corrupt, the world needs to know. I can understand when Honorable mentions that, well, some of the issues that we are dealing with are purely criminal rather than corruption. I can understand that. Sometimes the fine line between the two. But indeed, whether it's pure criminality or corruption, I think the best thing to do is to let all of us know that this person, I would never have known anything about Adoo, but for the AG's press conference. I never knew, I didn't even know of this Adoo. I mean, now I know there are 2 Adoo. That's the elder Adoo, Charles, who was dismissed for similar things.
That's a good one.
For his engagement with the then Vice President and then all the allegations that were made against him. And now we have this other Adoo, and I'm told they're actually blood brothers.
No, they're not related. The spelling itself
is different. Right?
This one has E at the end of it.
One is Boahene.
This is Boahene.
Can you imagine? Thank you for the clarification, because I actually thought they were all sons of Professor Adoo.
They're not having 2 words for the old Adoo.
For one person to have. So this is very good. So just imagine that we have this on our hands. And like I said, but for this press conference, imagine as informed as I thought I was, I wouldn't have known about this. And so think of other persons who may not be interested in state issues and national matters. They may not even be in the known at all. And so it is important that having accused a particular government of these things, you bring them to the public domain. Let's know about it. Let's interrogate it. Of course, ultimately, the court would have the right to determine their guilt or otherwise. Because I do not think that when the AG put out this information, he necessarily pronounced them guilty. I disagree with that narrative that is going out there, as if that just by bringing the information out there, simply because one person decides to assume that the information could affect the chances of the accused or the suspect, does not automatically in itself mean that the AG is pronouncing the person guilty within the public space. I do not go subscribe to that.
You know how the public, the court of public opinion behaves. So, for example, the average man on the street thinks that this gentleman is stealing money and he's using stolen money to buy houses, to buy this, to buy that, to buy that.
Yeah.
They may not have the sophistication to drill down and understand that. So that injures his reputation should it turn out otherwise tomorrow.
So, see, this is where I have difficulties with. If the AG has in any way, indirectly, insinuated what you're saying, I probably would agree with you. But where an AG or a person generally makes a direct and firm statement, devoid of all forms of insinuations, devoid of all forms of innuendos, and you decide to put your own interpretations on it, you decide to spin it against the person to whom those findings have been made. I think that should be left. I mean, I cannot change.
You can't control that.
The AG has no means of doing that. Otherwise, then nobody would put that information out there. Because really, any information you put in the public space, somebody who wants to be mischievous can, out of mischief, completely misinterpret it.
How about the details? You could do it, but say, for example, we're investigating this man in
If
respect
the details are factual, I wouldn't even allow you, Selorm, to finish. If the details are factual, what's wrong with that? You see, my problem...
I think the point is that anybody could do it, but the AG, given his dual role as Minister for Justice and Attorney General, you should be a bit circumspect. You don't.
And the circumspection here is what I'm addressing.
We don't know if there is more.
My circumspection here is that what he puts out there should be factual. If they are factual, how you interpret it is your private business. That cannot be a problem the AG should be saddled with. He puts out information. He says that, let's say, somebody has taken 7 million cedis, about dollars. That $7 million
moved to this account.
Has moved here. And then you are saying that the person stole it. How is that the AG's fault? I mean, how should we blame the AG for this?
Great.
I think sometimes we over-criticize.
But there's politics
and when we over-expect things from people, it is the reason why we question literally everything. But that shouldn't be. There should, as we criticize, we should also be constructive, and we should also ensure that what we are getting, if what we are getting really, as far as I'm concerned, does not yield to particular interpretations, misinterpretation in this particular case, I do not think that we should feed into that, because the moment we also start feeding into that, that is a point where those who, as you're saying, may think that, well, it's a stolen money, and all the other negative spent would also come in. If you also, as we are sitting here, if we are also pushing the same argument or the same information that the AG did, I do not think that the person that you say is less sophisticated would have that kind of mindset. And so I would encourage the AG to continuously engage us on daily basis, if it can be. I remember President Kufuor instituting this Meet the Press series. It is what has come to stay today. That was targeted at getting us the quality of governance that all of us will be proud of tomorrow. So long as you do that and you don't do it with mischief, I am all for it. Let's continue with that system, and let's continuously engage the general public. Let's continuously inform our citizens of what we are doing, using their mandate for, and put out accurate information. If their information is accurate, whoever puts a spin on it is entirely his private business.
Very well. Honorable Minister Hussaini, people think it's politics. I mean, crucify your opponents. Now they are 88, so that in 2028, the numbers may reduce totally. The NDC is in firm and bigger control. So the tactics is to demonize, to get people talking about them in all forms, so that it will create disaffection for them. You know, should the AG be meeting the public or the press in the manner he's been doing? I mean, media trial in this sense, people accuse him of.
Selorm. In my studies of the law, I've always taken special interest in understanding what happens in other analogous common law jurisdictions. And I sometimes use them as a standard to judge what happens in our country. They say the Attorney General entered a nolli prosequi for a number of cases. The case in Britain that jumps at me is the case that was being prosecuted against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the sale of weapons to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia under the conservative regime. At that time, I think it was Margaret Thatcher or so. Yes. When there was a change of government in Britain, the government filed a noli prosequi and said that it was not interested. The case bordered on corruption. So those who sold the arms to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had engaged in corrupt activities. The government filed a noli prosequi. And that ended the matter. It didn't explain anything. I've also been looking at the practice of the Attorney General engaging people or the citizens of a country in criminal trials. And the one that jumps at me is the criminal trial of the current president
of the US.
At no point did I hear a complaint that the attorney generals of the various states who were trying the president for falsifying his tax records claim that the president was being prejudged. At no point did I hear that. I take it also that in matters of criminal jurisprudence, my recourse has always been to the Nuremberg trials, which established the principle that there cannot be vicarious responsibility for the commission of a crime. So if you are so and so, and you go and commit a crime because somebody says you should go and do it and you are going to do it, you bear your own.
You bear your own cross.
So these are what has always been informing me in assessing what we are doing. I agree with you entirely. When you said you knew nothing about Edubuahi. In fact, let me add, when I woke up one day and read that a certain Edubuahi had been arrested at the airport when he was returning to this country from abroad, I asked myself, what did he do? What did he do? Will we have known what he did? No. Is it in the interest of the state to know why he was arrested at the airport? Yes. Is it an abridged? Is it a violation of his human rights? No. Because he's a person of interest. The people investigating the crime thinks that he's committed an offense against the state, against all of us.
All of us.
So he must be arrested at the airport. Is he entitled to a protection of his dignity? No. Because he is a person suspected to have committed a crime. Now, if that dignity can be restored, if he's proven innocent. And so, where we, and you ask yourself, why are we driving along this partisan road? And I'm sorry to say, your parliament, the minority has taken it upon itself to politicize all issues concerning the activities of the Attorney General. All issues. Now,
yeah, but
if first of all,
for example,
I'm coming. We established the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice. What is their role? If the rights of an officer of state or a former officer of state has been violated by another officer, don't that person has a recourse?
In law.
In law. Why does the minority arrogate to itself the power to say that, well, this is political witch hunt? And we are buying into it. It appears to me, what we are doing seems to suggest that we all abhor corruption. That's there's unanimity.
Yeah.
That we abhor corruption.
Actually, it's not true, Honorable.
Welcome.
Actually, we love it.
We love it, eh?
We love corruption.
Maybe the way the reverse is true. We love it.
We say
because
that we
say that we don't love it, but we are not prepared. We are not prepared to fight it. We say that we don't love it. All of us say that we don't love it.
Yeah, that's what
but
I'm
we are
saying.
not prepared to fight it. And you
It's a double
cannot.
standard.
I was the ranking member of the Constitutional, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee when we passed the Office of the Special Prosecutor. That's how I feel that I have a duty to protect that office. And I saw how Malaysia, a multi-party democracy, and outside again, another analogous Commonwealth jurisdiction, how they fought corruption. How the PAP, the People's Action Party, when they won the election, it's a multi-party democracy. How they fought, there was unanimity that this is the way to fight it. That anybody, whether you are a member of my government or a member of the opposition, if you are accused or suspected of having committed a crime, there should not be refuge for you. That's how we fight corruption. But are we fighting it that way in this country?
No, maybe our relatives are
We're
different.
we cocooned ourselves. We are oblivious to what happens elsewhere. Even in South Africa, the former president was subjected to trial.
No, Jacob Zuma went to prison.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
So we cocoon ourselves. And then in anything at all, we look, Bank of Ghana governor. Very respected person. Worked with the international bodies. The IMF. His house is raided. We are yet to hear this respected person speak on the raid. But the minority goes to parliament and says, oh, even those who raided the house stole money.
10,000 cities.
10,000 cities.
The AG says
So
an
cheapening.
insult.
I know.
So cheapening.
You know, so the man has not spoken.
In fact, the minority even says these boys they use are not even properly paid.
Can you imagine? So
They
it
are
is
not properly
we.
paid. Sometimes
It's
let
the
me see this
minority.
thing.
The greatest respect to my
No,
colleague
but
here.
you see, the minority has a duty, right?
What duty?
Their job is to, if they feel that the raid was carried out improperly, irrespective of who is involved,
again, so
they
you
have to
you
raise
have
the
raised
matter.
the thing. And the underlying and operative word you have used
is improperly.
Did they investigate that?
Well, because we
you see,
let
me put this on record.
Yes.
Nobody from the minority side, and myself in particular, is against accountability and fight against corruption. In fact, I have been on record and I say it everywhere that we ought to fight this menace ferociously. Because the net effect on our country is so huge and dire. Okay, so we are not holding brief for anybody. Let us think, we are not holding brief for anybody. All that I can say is that the AG has a responsibility. He's pursuing those interests and responsibilities. But let our actions and inactions, because see, in the context where you came from, we've had people under trial. Before he became AG, he has discontinued those cases, which were all corruption and corruption-related matters. Now you are starting a new trial.
Another government will come and free them.
Is that where we're going? So, but for me, let's separate the two. Give the AG all the support. I met him even yesterday on the floor. I've always been give him the benefit, let him do his work, and let's only make sure that whatever information we put out there is accurate.
Very well.
And let's inform the Ghanaian population.
So you have 1 minute to conclude and we close.
There is no way that you can fight corruption in the dark.
Yeah.
There's no way.
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
Yeah.
There ought to be exposure. And the exposure is not only naming and shaming those involved,
but even future and potential,
because it's sending a message.
Yes. That's
but you can only send that message.
That's even stronger than the ones you are dealing
with. You can only send that message if you brief the Ghanaian public the way it's been. And I'm sure that this will clearly put the present appointees on notice.
At this point, people are already shivering. Just imagine if you have done something shady.
I
At this
see.
point.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I think it's been an interesting discussion throughout, right from the beginning to now. This is how we conclude today's edition of the program. Our show has been live, of course, here on Channel 1 Television and also on 97.3 City FM and on our socials. My guests have been the Honorable Yunus Afuseni, former MP, Tamale Central Minister for many portfolios, notably lands and natural resources and roads and highways. Justice Abdullah.
Still talking about Galamsey today.
It's a canker. Justice Abdullah, private legal practitioner. Franklin Kojo joined us earlier, President Imani Africa, and of course, the Honorable Isaac Boama Nyako, MP for Ifia, this has been his debut. How do you say it? So this has been his first time on the show, and we hope to have him more times. Yes, it's a debut. Yeah, yes, first time on the show. Fantastic man who took out a giant, but it's okay. All right, so my name is Selorm Adonoo. Thanks so much for doing.
He needs commendation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's a superman. So I don't understand how he managed to take out the man. But that's okay. And we wish him the best in Parliament, and we hope to see him more times. All right, so my name is Selorm Adonoo. Thanks so much for doing the viewing and the listening. Now, we take you live to the forecourt of the State House for the funeral ceremony of Na Anamwa, a founding member of the Ga music group Wulome. Our correspondent Philip Ni Latte is on the ground with the latest on that. Hello, Philip.
Thank you, Selorm. So we can see live in a shot there, the casket of Na Amanwa is being taken to the funeral. Na Amanwa passed on in December 16, 2024. That is last year. And today she is being buried. Well, just ended was the burial service that was held at the State House of the country. That is in front of the Parliament House. A number of dignitaries came here in their numbers from the presidency, government officials, musicians, among others. From the presidency, Deputy Chief of Staff Nana Oye Bampo Ado represented the President of the Republic, John Dramani Mahama, where she indicated that the President really cherishes the contribution that Na Amanwa has played or contributed to the music industry in this country. Mind you, Na Amanwa is and was a key figure in the Wulome band that we saw promoting the Ghanaian tradition, especially the Ga music. A number of music that we hear, Keke Minfo, Isisa, No Yale, Yake Sisa Momwake, Ehiami Kefie, Amajemi, among other musics that you hear from the Wulome, was propagated or pushed by Na Amanwa. She was a very key voice in this particular group. And from the Musica, that is the Musician Union of Ghana, led by its president, Bessa Simons, he also indicated that Na Amanwa has played key role in the music space when it comes to Musica. She was able to promote the Ga music or the traditional culture through music globally, and that has really helped. The local government minister, deputy, that is Rita Na Odole Soa, also came to this particular ceremony, where she also made mention of the fact that, well, Na Amanwa has played a key role in the music space, and she has been able to promote the traditional music in this country. So it tells you the role Na Amanwa has played in this space. Not forgetting our very own Nat Brew, who also came to this particular funeral, who made mention of the fact that Na Amanwa was in their space every now and then. They went to Plus 233, held a ceremony there, held an occasion there where Na Amanwa played her role in the music space. Rexoma also came to this function, he also made mention of the fact that we cannot take the maternal figure Na Amanua played in the music industry. Mind you, when the news of her demise broke, it was Rexoma that in a way broke this particular news. He put it on his Twitter handle, where a number of individuals saw that Na Amanua passed on. Na Amanua battled with some form of illness last year until she succumbed to this illness in the month of December 2024, on 16th December 2024. So it tells you the key role Na Amanua has played in the music industry. At Channel 1, we have had Na Amanua been to our studio a number of times, where she has promoted the Ghanaian music a number of times on our network. So with the significant role Na Amanua has played in the traditional culture space through music can never be understated. It tells you that she has really played a number of motherly roles in this space when it comes to music. As you can hear from the background, it's her group, that is the Wulomo group, playing some of the tunes of Na Amanua. Just shortly, I'll be speaking to some of the people around who would share one or two with us when it comes to the life of Na Amanua in the traditional space or in the music space, what she has done, the reason why a lot of people came in here to, show their last respect to Na Amanua here. So you can see it's the Ulome cultural troupe displaying some of the good tunes of Na Amanua here at the State House. And some of the tunes we've been hearing, well, most of them came from Na Amanua. She originated. So the passing of this remarkable artist has left a deep void in the Ghanaian music scene, as she was not only celebrated a performer, but also a cultural ambassador who played a significant role in preserving and promoting Ghanaian music. Na Amanua, whose music transcended generations, was a beloved figure in Ghana's music history. So she has played her role. Let's now start engaging. Let's start engaging some of the people who came here to witness her final respect, or the final respect being paid